Hello wrestling fans, Jonathan Cairns here. It's about 12:30 on a Friday night after a big show at the Stratford Town Hall Gymnasium, PEI's first cage match. And what a night it was. How many wrestling promotions can say they had the sitting premier of the province serve as guest timekeeper? We did tonight at Red Rock Wrestling, and I'm about to interview the Cardinal Sinners. These guys have been in professional wrestling 20 years apiece, 21 for Brody Steele or Peter Smith, and 20 years for Cowboy Mike Hughes. And I've been around for 19 years, so it's a total combined 60 years of experience in this conversation, and I'm looking forward to doing this interview tonight. Now, what I'm trying to do is ask questions that pertain to the Cardinal Sinners as a group together. So as opposed to a Mike shoot and a Pete shoot, we don't want to do that. We try to do stuff where the Cardinal Sinners were together. We're going to talk about some of the older days, their opinions on the current product, and some out-of-the-ring questions. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to this. And my first impression of both of these guys was very different. I met Pete in 1998. He was a star of Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling, wrestling under the name the Giant Mighty Hercules. And he was a specimen. He was a sight to behold. He was one of the star attractions, and the veterans were putting him over and making him look like $1,000,000. Right away, I knew that guy was something special. Now, when I met Mike for the first time was in 1999, also wrestling for Grand Prix, but Mike was much greener. You didn't see the star power right away. He was just another big guy. And if you had told me this guy would be the top worker in the Maritimes and one of the best in the world for the next 20 years, I'd say, I don't think so. But that's not how it turned out. Cowboy Mike Hughes is one of the very best in the world. So we're going to sit down tonight and we're going to talk to these two, and we hope you enjoy it. All right, gentlemen, first thing I want to talk about is what's the feeling after a huge show? We just had a big cage match. We had the Premier of Prince Edward Island involved as the guest timekeeper. What's the feeling after a big show like this?
I couldn't be happier with the turnout tonight. With Red Rock Wrestling being my promotion, and our crew was solid from top to bottom. Every match was there. The crowd was hot from the opening bell right through to the very end. And just having the support of everybody that was there, with government officials, the premier, like you said, everybody being there. It's great that wrestling on Prince Edward Island has come back to like a mainstream type of form of entertainment here. So it was great.
I was jealous of the guys for being able to perform tonight. I told Mike it's very rare for me to sit down and watch an entire show, but I watched it. Opening bell to finishing bell, every match, every minute of every match. And it was a huge crowd. It was an electric crowd, and obviously the cage match was the main event, but every match was main event quality. I honestly believe it was the best show I've seen in the Maritimes, maybe ever. And that's like even real action wrestling way back in the day. We would have a dud match on most shows. There was no duds tonight. Everyone was a star. So I wish to I could have got in and done a match tonight.
So it's tough being on the sidelines or something like that.
Horrible, yeah.
All right, let's take it back from the beginning. How did you get in the business, Pete?
I was a bodybuilder, strongman, and I was always interested in the business. It was always kind of plan B, but I noticed there were some new faces in the gym. Glenn Kalka, Edge, Christian, Scott Demore, and Gary Gallant, Gary Williams, who I'd known a little bit because he's from the town. They were all in the gym together, so they all looked like wrestlers. So I thought, well, geez. So I went up and I introduced myself to Gary. Although we lived in the same town, we were just, if I'd see him, we'd nod, and that was it. That was our relationship. So I went up and talked to him. I said, "Are you guys wrestling?" He goes, "Yeah." So he gave me, and I said, "I'd love to give it a try." He gave me Emile's information, and I contacted Emile, and I was wrestling the next year. So a year later.
Mike, how'd you get in the business?
Almost identically the same way, actually. I was at the gym. I was working out, or just about to go work out, and I was sitting at the shake bar out in front of AFC, and Edge, Christian, Scott Demore, Rodney Blackbeard or something.
Yeah, black guy.
The black guy was there, and Kolka was hungover. He was out at Myron's the night before, and he was feeling it pretty heavy, and he just said, "What are you training today?" And I said, "Oh, I'm training back or whatever." And He said, do you mind if do you want to work out together? He goes, I don't want to be changing plates all day with those two skinny guys. And he was pointing at Edge and Christian. And I was a pretty big guy at the time. And so we started working out. And he said, just my interaction with people coming into the gym and stuff. And he said, you're a pretty charismatic guy. And he's like, I asked him actually first, what are you guys doing in town? Because in Prince Edward Island, you see somebody new in town, you know they're not from there. And he said, oh, we're here wrestling with Grand Prix Wrestling. I said, well, I never heard. Like, I never seen a poster. There wasn't very much promoting done, funny enough, with that caliber of talent. And he said, you should give wrestling a try. You're a charismatic guy. And I said, well, I never thought it was big enough. He goes, those two guys over there are big enough. He says, you're obviously big enough. And he gave me Emile Dupre's phone number. And I think it was probably a rib. I don't know, like probably some guy to call Emile. And but I did. And I called Emile, and he told me to send him pictures. And this was before I knew anything about the internet or Emile, so I actually took like Polaroid pictures and mailed them to him. And then
there used to be a thing called the mail service, where you'd actually everything was physical. Then
I think I read about that somewhere.
You put it in slots, and some guy would come and I think they were probably riding ponies then.
But anyway,
Glenn Kalka hung posters for me. I was promoting a strongman event, and we got talking, and he was a strong bastard, and we got talking. He goes, "Well, how are you promoting?" I said, "Just word of mouth, and throwing some posters up." He goes, "Give me some posters. I'll put them around." He said, "We're traveling all over the Maritimes," and I don't know if he hung them or not, but I gave him a stack of posters, and I'm assuming he wouldn't have offered if he wasn't going to do it. He was a great guy.
Yeah.
I did a radio interview with him about 10 years ago. He's a radio DJ in Ottawa now. He's out of wrestling completely.
Strength-wise, how would you compare to Glenn Kalka? Would he have been as strong as you?
No, but he was strong.
Oh,
but before I started wrestling, I was very strong. Once I started wrestling, you can't train the same way. But at that time, no, he wasn't really in my league, but he was strong.
Oh yeah, well, pro football player with the
and known for his
Saskatchewan
intensity.
Roughriders.
And he was a super nice guy. Like we had a great conversation that day, and he was like genuinely appeared to be like want to see somebody else get into wrestling.
Well, yeah, that's what he's a good guy. He's still a good guy.
And so when he got me involved, like I said, I sent the pictures to Emile. Emile called me. Actually, I called Emile. And I sent him the pictures, and then he actually never called me back, but I called him back and kind of persisted. I figured I took the leap. I might as well keep at it. And then he said that he would train me, and I was going over on weekends for the first bit. That was the latter half of 1998. Mm-hmm. And then I was over there. He had the ring set up in a bowling alley in Shediac. And that's where I met Peter, actually. Peter just got back from a show in Maine, I believe. He was wrestling Tony Atlas. And him and Denise, I think, came in.
I believe so. Yeah. I met you and your dog Vader that day.
Yeah.
What were your first impressions of each other?
I thought he was a twat. Nothing's changed.
Honestly, when I seen him come in, he was very big. He was massive. He was bigger than, I think, probably the biggest you ever were at the time. Maybe. You're over 300.
Yeah.
And I came in and I thought, oh, fuck, this is... Everybody's this big. I was right. I am too small for wrestling. And so he came in. I was only working at the time. Emile, Rene Dupree, and Hubert Gallant was coming in from time to time.
Probably Jeff Dupree.
Jeff wasn't at the time. No,
he didn't train until a few years later.
He
trained the year before. When I first started, it was Jeff that was supposed to. Jeff was training to wrestle, and Rene was only 14. So Rene would come out and screw around, but Rene was developing physically so quickly, and I can't knock the guy in the ring. I mean, from day one, he just got it. So it ended up that Jeff became the referee that year in '98, and Rene worked every night and has been working ever since.
And the year I broke in and never seen Jeff at all other than her at the house because I stayed in Emile.
Yeah, that's right. He wasn't in the business at all that year. It's like he reffed the first year. But as far as when I met Mike that day, I remember the day quite well. We hit it off right away, and we've been best pals ever since.
Yeah, we were two guys that had a lot of the same similar interests, right? We both worked out. We were into sports. You know what I mean? We had the same kind of. We knew a few of the same people, and we just liked the same things. We instantly connected, and like I said, we've been best friends ever since.
So were you fans of professional wrestling before you got into it?
I was a huge fan.
Who were some of your favorites?
Leo Burke, Stephen Pettipaw, The Beast. I wasn't a fan of the Cuban Assassin at the time because I didn't know what good work was or bad work was.
Yeah.
But his characters, Sweet Daddy Siki, even though he was a heel, I enjoyed the charismaticness of him. Killer Carl Krupp.
I loved Killer. Didn't love, but I respected Killer Carl Krupp and Archie the Stomper, Goldie.
Yeah.
I remember looking at those guys saying, "Man, I wouldn't want to fuck with those guys."
Mm-hmm.
And even the Cuban, I used to look at the Cuban and I'd think to myself, he's short and he's fat. Doesn't look like he's in particularly good shape, but he looks so vicious and confident that's a guy that you wouldn't want to mess with. And I was telling one of the guys I traveled over to the show today, I was telling him, like, when I was a fan, and my generation of fans, we weren't idiots. We weren't buying it. But I used to look at matchups. I remember, like, take Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior, for example. And I knew they weren't going to go in, it wasn't going to be a shoot fight. But I would try to look at I would think, okay, Ultimate Warrior is probably 50 pounds lighter, but he's just as strong, and he's probably quicker. But Hogan's got a weight advantage, and he's got experience. So I would weigh it in my mind, like, who would win? And then I would be interested in the outcome, and I wouldn't question Vince McMahon's decision, like fans do now. I would just like, if it went the opposite of how I thought it should go, I would just assume there's a reason for it. And I would enjoy watching a story unfold. I didn't want to be the booker. I wanted to enjoy it for what it was.
Booker was at the
no,
time.
neither did I.
I didn't know any of that stuff at all. I just thought it was a great show at the time. But for me, I didn't know anything about Hulk Hogan or any of these guys because on Prince Edward Island, when I was growing up, there was only 2 channels. There was ATV or CTV, whatever Grand Prix Wrestling was on, and then there was CBC. So it was an institution on Prince Edward Island, Grand Prix Wrestling, every Saturday. I think it was 6 o'clock.
I thought you had 3 channels over here for the 3 languages. French, English, and gibberish.
We don't have French on beat, yeah. That's a New Brunswick and Quebec thing. So the greatest wrestler of all time, in my opinion, was Leo Burke. And it was funny enough, I thought that originally, and then I seen the WWE guys, and then when I got in the business, I was reminded Leo Burke was probably one of the best wrestlers of all time.
Now, I'm a little older than Mike, what was it, 8 years older or 7 years older or whatever, so I remember the I remember the end of the Beast's career, so not the end because he went forever, but I remember the end of his peak. And so the Beast was the most popular wrestler that ever wrestled around here, no question about it. And so I remember that peak. So to me, although Leo was probably a better wrestler, the Beast was the biggest star we ever had here. Like my father, it was probably 90. You'd have probably been there, maybe 98 or 99. I remember my father coming to a show in Antigonish. And he was a grown man, more than a grown man. He was a middle-aged or elderly man, and he'd have been 60 years old. And he asked me if he could come meet the Beast. It was one of the highlights of his life. He couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe that he shook the hand of the Beast. That's what kind of impact he had in this area back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
And see, my family too had. Part of my family, we grew up in the harness racing industry. And the Beast was not only famous for being a wrestler, he was a world-class blacksmith and horse trainer. So part of my family respected him as a horse trainer, not only that, but as a wrestler too. And for like legendary feats of strength, we were talking about this earlier, the Beast.
Antigonish.
The horse. The thing where we got the horse.
He comes to us, he called us jabronis or something. Hey, you jabronis, come back and see this. So we go back behind the arena, and there was a horse pulling contest that day with big Belgian workhorses. So the Beast had already talked to the owner of this big Belgian. What would it weigh? 3,000 pounds? I don't know what a horse weighs.
It's massive.
But he puts it. Say the horse's ass is here. So the Beast turned around, so his back was at the horse's ass, and then he put his hips between the horse's back legs. Then grabbed the horse by the hooves and he yanked them up in the air, So the horse's full weight on his ass came down on the beast's back. The beast is holding the horse. The horse is like sitting on the beast's back.
He sat
That's
on his back.
freakish strength.
Yeah, and so
freakish.
And I asked him. I said, "How did you know you could do that?" Well, when he was shoeing horses as a blacksmith, it was kind of the same position. And the odd time a horse would sit down on him, but so usually you'd only have one leg. And he said to keep the thing off balance, he put the other leg there so it would balance him out. But who does that? There's no normal man like
he was 60 years old when he did it.
I was just going to say.
60 years old, hadn't been in the gym in 20 years. He's just freakishly strong and brave. I mean, obviously, there's a bit of a gimmick to it. You'd know the balance and all that stuff. But still, I mean, it would be one daunting thing to try for the first time. And to do it at 60. And he knew it was impressive. So he came. He walked all the way around to the front of the building to get us to walk all the way back around.
I was blown away by it. Like I was super impressed. And I don't care if you know how to do it. That wasn't his horse.
He never met. That was the first day he ever met that horse. And he said afterwards, he goes, "I don't really like Belgians." He goes, "Belgians are tricky." He says they're temperamental. He preferred Clydesdales. So. It was worth it to him for his little moments of, but to be fair, I'm 52 now, so I'm getting close to the age the Beast was then. And, we're the young wrestlers, we're having fun and we're in our athletic peak. So, he wanted to show us, and I'm kind of the same way.
You can understand it?
Yeah, I can understand it, know.
It was funny, Pete and I were very lucky that the years that we broke in, the amount of people that we had to learn from. And so we got to learn from the Beast, Leo Burke, the Cuban Assassin, Butcher Vachon, not the original one, but Roger Terra, who I learned a lot for, and he was very respectful.
Yeah.
Bobby Bass, who was an asshole, but
he was still helpful.
He was still very helpful at the time. He wasn't very helpful to me. He was a dickhead.
No, he was trying to bury you, but you learn from that.
I learned from him trying to bury me what to not let.
How to not let yourself be buried.
Yeah, so everything was a learning experience those first few years, and that's something that I think is missing in wrestling today. There aren't that many veterans in the locker room to teach people the storytelling, why to do things, why not to do things, when to do things, when not to do things.
And the broadness of experience, like. How many guys in the Maritimes right now have actually been in the ring with somebody who's trying to hurt them?
Yeah,
probably none.
Yeah.
Well, and I've all over the world. I've had people try to shoot on me all over the world. Yeah. And it's something that you don't expect. I mean, just last year we were in Japan and we found out Kendo Suzuki, what's his name? Kendo Suzuki.
Kenzo, or the guy that was in WWE.
Yeah, so whatever his name is. We were doing a tag match against him and this great big strong guy. He was, fucking huge, powerful guy. And Kenzo told us before the match, he says, "I think that guy's going to try to hurt you guys, so be careful." And that was probably just an inside thing where they were trying to get her, where he was trying to, the guy who was trying to intimidate us, trying to get a reaction. So we told him almost at the exact same time, you go tell him to give it his best shot.
Yeah.
We went up, we ended up having a fabulous match. But he was just seeing what we were made of, If we'd acted scared, he probably would have, well, fuck that. I think either one of us would beat his ass on a bad day, but he doesn't know, and he was being protective of his position. There's a lot of that in wrestling that a lot of the younger guys, they don't even realize that stuff exists, but it does.
Yeah.
It does. I've had a lot. I mean, I remember you had to basically try to kill a guy in Korea because he wouldn't let you do anything. He was trying to hang onto the ropes, and you had to yank him off the ropes, pick him up, and slam him and show him, like, this is what we're doing. And actually, I think the same tour, you and I were doing a tag match, and the little Barney Rubble guy, I went to grab a hold of him, and he did the same thing. He grabbed the ropes, so like as if to tell me I'm not slamming him. Well, fuck you, pal. I'm stronger than you, so you can hang on to the ropes. I'm going to pull you off the ropes. I'm picking you up over my head, and I'm slamming you.
And it happens from time to time. Like when I was in Japan, too, there was a sumo wrestler guy that tried to do the same thing, didn't want to work with me. And, you'd have to say, well, if you want to fuck around, we'll fuck around. I don't care. Like if you want to fight, I'll fight. I'm good with that, but I'd sooner work.
Yeah,
I'd much sooner
Nobody
work.
wants to fight.
Yeah, but if you want to.
But a lot of it is they're just trying to, they're feeling you out. And it's not always the guy. It could be those orders could be coming from the top. If a guy is going to invest, if a promoter is going to invest in you, sometimes they want to know what you're made of. Is this guy legit? You know, and being legit doesn't necessarily always make you draw. I mean, Ric Flair can't fight, and he's drawing as much money than probably everyone, but maybe 5 guys. But you know, it's a whole different animal. You know, promoters have different ways of testing you.
And the other thing is this: when we broke into the business, there were still territories at the time, and whenever we went into places like Puerto Rico or England and stuff, by us foreigners coming into the area, somebody else's friend was going home with
Sitting
no paycheck,
home, not getting paid.
So if people thought that they could send you home to get their friend back on the job, they'd, you know, take a few liberties and test how much you were willing to give back, and you know, usually stood up for yourself. But that's something that doesn't happen. I'm glad it doesn't happen in wrestling.
Well, our good friend Dave Boyce asked me last week or a couple weeks ago. We were talking about, you know, that I've put words in for some people that have gone to Europe and not represented the Maritimes well, and he goes, is it a personality thing? I said, well, maybe sometimes. He goes, well, do you mean to tell me that nobody's that nobody's ever not, or that nobody's not liked you in your career? I said, well, probably there's been lots of people that don't like me, but when I go a place somewhere, I've generally managed to draw money. So I have to, you know, have to go in there with the mindset that there's going to be some people that resent you being there, but if you're going to draw money, then everybody wins. So even the guy sitting home is going to end up with more work than he might have had before if you draw money.
And they soon forget that their friend's sitting at home when they're making more money.
Yeah, and getting more, and there's more date sheet. There's more dates added to the date sheet.
Yeah, and you know, like it's one of those things in the job that doesn't. And I'm talking like 10 years ago when most of this. In the last 10 years, there isn't a lot of this going on, but I'm grateful that I broke in at the time that I did and got to see the tail end of the territory system. Like when we broke in with Grand Prix Wrestling, we were wrestling 7 days a week, twice on Sundays. Like Real Action Wrestling, the same thing after that. And then when Real Action Wrestling ended, we went to England. And then like Pete went over to England first, and then he got me over to England after that. And then we wrestled there for a while. Then we would go from there on to Puerto Rico. You know what I mean? I wrestled in Puerto Rico. But we were lucky that we got to go in and do it as a full-time job. And that gives you a whole total different perspective than just people that are working weekend dates.
There's a big difference between loving wrestling and needing wrestling. You know, a lot of these guys talk about their passion and stuff, and that's great. I hope they're happy. But until you're in a position where you need to get in there in the ring, and you need to see business strengthen, when you've got a vested interest in doing an angle and going back to the town 2 weeks later and seeing that there's an increase in the gate, and if there's a decrease in the gate and you're at the top of the bill, you know that your head's on the chopping block, or at the very least you're going to be moved down the card and you're dispensable. So to be in the pressure situations of having to draw money, you know, I enjoy that, to be honest with you, and I'm still doing it. You know, I was put into that position about a year and a half ago in Germany. I was put at the top of the bill, and I was, you know, the first couple tours, business seemed to be down. I was thinking, oh Jesus, but it's picked back up. So, you know, I'm not holding myself responsible for that in any way, but we're all a team, and you know, it's nice to be part of a product that is taken off again. You know, we're on the verge of tournaments being. Mike did the last not full length, but a full-ish length tournament in Germany, a 10-day tournament in one town. That was 2004. I did the one the year before.
Yeah.
And we're on the verge of that coming back. So it's for people that are, for weekend warriors, they wouldn't even know what a German tournament is, but or your average fan. But guys that are actually pro wrestlers, it's kind of one of the pinnacles of wrestling. There's Japan and Germany, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about earlier. We were lucky at the point that we broke into the business, and to learn from the people that we got to learn from, we were able to get bookings and stay with bookings because we learned the job properly, we respected the job, we learned how to build territories. We didn't go in and do hot shots, do every pro wrestling move that was ever invented in one match, and then hot shot it and not be able to go. We learned how to progressively build in the territories we were in and to build things up. So for longevity, to stretch things out. And all those things we learned, a great example of it is what we did right here tonight in Red Rock Wrestling. I basically used the same roster for 10 years, and in the smallest province in the country have averaged probably some of the biggest houses.
Well, I asked JP tonight. I said, when's the last time you wrestled in front of a crowd this big with an all-local talent? He said, well, last year we had Booker T. And I said, no. I said, an all-local talent. He says, yeah. He says, Jesus, this would be by far the most.
Yeah.
And just think of the expense bringing in all these names versus your expense.
Well, yeah, and you know what? It's a lot of work. Like,
you got to get them to believe in the product.
And I'll tell you, this is the other thing too, is you have to have them to believe not only in the product, but you have to have people there. Prince Edward Island is a place where firemen, fishermen, and I was brought up. If somebody asked you to fight, if they didn't have to ask you twice. You just went outside, and that's how it was. So to bring in skinny, out-of-shape guys that didn't look like... The fans here aren't going to buy it. You need big, believable guys, and guys like Peter and myself, Chris Cook. You know, there's so many... Titus. There's so many big guys that look the part, and that's what works here, and that's what I've brought here, and that's what's drawn the crowds here. And every territory that I've worked in that was successful, that was always the formula. To have people that looked like believable tough guys. When I was in Puerto Rico, the roster was incredible. You know what I mean? When even in England, like not only any guy that didn't look like physical, you could tell they were hard people and they knew how to technically wrestle. So you had people in there that looked believable, that looked tough, looked like they were technically sound. And to me, that's the key to having territories work well. And I think in a lot of places that's gone away, the believability factor.
But the territories that are drawing us, like I told you how successful our last German tournament was. I was the 4th tallest guy on the crew and the 6th heaviest. Think about that.
Yeah.
Think about how huge. I'm 6'6" and 300 pounds. There was 5 guys heavier than me and 3 guys taller than me. That's a huge fucking crew.
Yeah.
And they could all go.
The roster that we had when we went to India, that was a huge roster.
Yeah, and it got bigger. Yeah. The Indian guys, we developed a couple giants. So I think probably the one giant was with you. With you.
Shanky was the only one that was there, but there was 2 more that came in later. But you think of Cali, yourself, me,
Mike
Apollo,
Knox.
Mike Knox,
Yeah.
Crimson. I think Brian Cage and what's the other Black, PJ Black.
Yeah.
Were the 2 smallest guys probably on that crew of foreigners. So,
What would their size been?
well, Cage was big. He was like 250 or something.
Jacked,
but he was like jacked. But
he probably under 6 feet.
yeah, and I think PJ Black might have been.
He's a small guy,
200 pounds, maybe.
Yeah.
So
He just ran a show in South Africa where they brought in Rob Van Dam, and they drew under 200 people.
I seen that. Yeah.
Imagine the money lost there.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. Rob Van Dam charges $25,000.
Good for him.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't even want to wrestle. He thought he'd outprice himself so he could just retire. But people still pay him. So
That's incredible.
he's going to grab that money.
Yeah. I hope I have the same problems.
Yeah.
Well, you were talking about India. Talk about that 70,000 people house where you took on the Great Khali. You were on that show too, Mike.
I was on that show.
Talk
It was
about that
incredible. Well, I'll tell you right now. And I've said this to him before. There was no better person for Callie to bring in to be believable than Peter at that time. And the press conferences and everything, the way it was built up with Callie going to the hospital, he came in. Both of us came in as substitutes for 2 other people. And I'm not going to say who they were, but all I'm going to say is that it worked out better for the promotion to have somebody that people actually thought could beat Callie. And I was just a guy in the card. I was just a filler. But Pete and Callie, like, to have that many people was ridiculous. To have the heat, the old school heat. We used to generate that kind of heat in Puerto Rico, but I hadn't seen it since. and to be able to generate that heat where the media wanted to kill us. They were rioting and wanted to leave, and then to have the fans, and then to have military guards at the hotel, and we weren't allowed to leave. We'd have to be in the back of police trucks to get escorted to the gym and everything like that. It was awesome. Like, people would ask me about that, like, oh, were you nervous? And I was like, if I was probably smarter, I would have been, but I was so caught up in the fact that we were getting this heat and that was good for business. And
they were burning my effigy in the streets.
Yeah. And
it was real, you know? Actually, to be honest with you, the guys burning the effigy in the street were just marks. But the average people at the stadium, all they knew was I was hurting their hero, and they're pelting us with rocks. It was Apollo got hit by a boulder about that big, right in the back of the neck. I don't know how it didn't kill him. And the very next night, actually, it might have been the same night. It was the same night, right before he got hit by the boulder. Somebody reached over the guardrail and popped him. So he pulled the guardrail, snapped the guardrail back, and went back. He went into the crowd, and all you heard was fist hitting flesh, and saw people dropping. I was trying to catch up so I could contribute, but it happened so quick, and the next thing you know, everyone's running. You know, then we get back and we're going up the ramp, and then they came back and they started pelting rocks at us. It was crazy. I remember Bones, the referee, Justin King, saying he was with us, and he said, we should run, man. I said, we're not fucking running. And we just walked slowly up the stairs and taunted her up the ramp and taunted them. But those are the moments that you work your whole career for, and they don't come often. So,
and the military had to come down and kind of help people back at the time because
they're beating them back with
the sticks.
Bamboo sticks.
So I was sitting in the back and I was watching on the monitor. Myself and Sean Hernandez and Chris Raber, Bambi Killer, were in the back, and the TV monitor was set on 3 steel rods on the back, and I was sitting in the back, and I seen the crowd was swarming around them, and I said to the boys, boys, we'll take these steel rods and run out to go down there and help them. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, the crowd's like, what are we gonna do? I said, well, we gotta go down and get them. And as we went to go up to the exit of the side ramp to go down where the thing was, the military guys came down and just kind of cut us off and kind of went down to the ramp, and they went down and started clubbing people back. And I remember they were throwing rocks, and I think they were little like burlap sack things that they were selling peanuts or something, filling them with rocks and sand and throwing.
Remember that building, that arena had just been built.
Yeah,
they built it for the event. Well, partially for the event.
It's a cricket stadium, but the first event
they
ever.
sped up the building of it for this event. And so there was lots of concrete laying around because it was still under construction. So there's chunks of concrete. And I've been back quite a few times after, and we've had crowds that big since, but it was never the same as this. This was, we've had crowds of 70,000. We had back-to-back crowds in the Himalayas, right on the border of Nepal. Like, and you know, there'd be 75,000 people or whatever, and maybe 20 cars because everybody walked from villages around. But it wasn't the same that night, and it was Dal Radoon that we were in. That was the most. I'll never experience anything like that again because that was real. It wasn't just people paying to see a wrestling show. And remember, there were 72,000 people in the building. There's 20,000 more outside that couldn't get in because they were full.
Yeah.
So there was close to 100,000 people that showed up to that event. Craziness.
Yeah.
I remember us looking outside and thinking, these are the people that can't get in. What we would give to get that crowd anywhere else.
Yeah.
And they didn't just walk away. They stayed outside the arena because they wanted to be close to the action.
And listen.
Can you imagine any fan doing that?
No.
Standing outside the arena for 5 hours.
Yeah. It was one of the longest shows I was ever.
None of them left.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, they had a real big pre-show bands, you know, famous bands, and we've had famous Bollywood stars and stuff involved. It's been quite a deal over there.
You've been in some movies over there, have you not?
Yeah, I did one movie, yeah, Bollywood movie. I showed up thinking I was the extra, and they said, "Are you familiar with your script?" I said, "What script?" They said, "Are you fucking kidding me?" I was on 700 pages of script, on 700 pages of dialogue. They said, "You're the main villain. You're the lead villain." So, Kelly didn't tell me. He should have told you, and he was supposed to send you the script, and all he sent me was my deal and what date, what the plane tickets. That was it.
Wow.
Oh, well. We got through it. I ad-libbed my way through an entire motion picture.
Were they pleased?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
I remember you brought back the boots.
Yeah. And the jacket.
Oh, that's right, the jacket too. Well, I'm going back to the Maritimes for a bit. Your first impressions of Emile Dupre?
I was blown away by Emile Dupre because Emile Dupre was, infamous for the mule kick in Grand Prix Wrestling. And then I remember watching, forget what TV show it was about wrestling, but what's the famous announcer from the Mid-South area?
Solely?
Gordon Soley. Yeah, came on and he said at one time that Emile Dupre's Grand Prix Wrestling is the 5th largest grossing promotion in North America.
I remember Emile getting an award for, but I was awestruck by Emile, and me and Emile don't really see eye to eye these days, but I respect that man. He did a lot for me. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now. I really respect Emile, and I like Emile, regardless of how he feels about me. I like Emile,
and I'm the same way. I learned so much from Emile. When Emile wanted to teach everything about the wrestling business at the time that I was there, and unfortunately Rene didn't want to listen to him at all, and he just wanted to teach somebody, and I absorbed everything Emile told me like a sponge. He would tell me about how he would ship his posters around the Maritimes. He would tell me about how he used the bus system. He would tell me about how he planned towns for the best gas. He would tell me how he booked hotels, how he'd negotiate with arenas, and I absorbed that like a sponge.
Yeah.
And that's what I did with every promoter. If I was driving with a promoter, if I was working for a promoter, I wanted to drive from them and listen to them because I always had plans of someday running my own wrestling promotion. And I would sit and just pick their minds the whole time. And Emile was always eager to teach. He loved the business and wanted to teach somebody.
He was proud of what he had accomplished.
And he accomplished a lot. The man has built an empire of real estate and everything else. I have so much respect for Emile, and his family was really good to me. They took me in, they trained me, and I can't say enough about Emile Dupre. And Paula too. They feel like when we opened Real Action Wrestling that we betrayed them and everything else. But to clarify that, Emile had told me that whenever I worked for him that the only reason that he had restarted Grand Prix Wrestling was because Rene wanted to start working in the business. And as soon as Rene had gotten signed with WWE or decided that he wasn't then he was done with the business. And so when we started Real Action Wrestling, we'd only had the intentions of running in the fall and then going back and working for Emile in summer because he wouldn't work the fall or the winter months. So when that had happened, and Emile just turned, but I talked to Emile since then, and he was fine with me and everything else.
He's called me. We've had a conversation. I mean, there was no ill intent.
Yeah,
we were trying to make a buck, and I wasn't running Real Action Wrestling. I was called by you and Scott Gallant, and you said we've got a 2-week tour. Do you want to do it? Of course, I want to do it. Do I want to make money or do I want to not make money? So. Yeah, and there was no ill intent. And knowing what I know now, to be honest with you, if that call had come in and it was Peter Smith with the 52-year-old brain instead of Peter Smith back then, I probably would have said no. I would have said no. Emile offers me solid work in the summer. I probably would have said no, but I didn't know better. Yeah. And not that I'm saying that we did anything wrong, but I probably would have said no. And I'll be honest, I did call Emile right away, and I told him there's and I think you did too. Yeah. And I told him I didn't put your name out. I said, but there's a guy named Scott Gallant who's running some shows, and I'm going to do them. Do you have a problem with that? He goes, no, go ahead. Yeah. So I mean, for him to have a gripe about it later, there's nothing I can do about it. Yeah. I mean, it did work out in the end. And
it was funny how it all worked out because that's how we got our name, the Cardinal Sinners, was that Emile Dupre Scott Gallant had actually called him when I was in the house with him. And he said that you guys have committed the cardinal sin. He said, you run against me, you will never work in this business again. He said, I will make sure that you never, ever work in wrestling. I know everybody will never work again. And at the time, I didn't know any better. I was like, okay, whatever. You know what I mean? And then I said, well, that sounds like a pretty cool name, the Cardinal Sinners. So, and it's worked for us ever since. So,
well, I want to ask you, how did you guys feel? Your second year in the business, your third year in the business, you're blackballed from your home territory. How'd that feel?
We didn't really. I can say I didn't really.
I didn't really give a fuck.
At the time, so when I was working for Emile, I think I started off at like $350, $400, something like that for a week working with Emile, and then all of a sudden I was offered $750 a week, and then after I was like, my investment into it was booking the wrestlers and that, and it was split the profits, right? So then when we sold the company to New Age Entertainment, then all of a sudden, I think our first deal where it was like $1,100 a week to start with, and then we got bumped down after that. But going from $350 a week to $1,100 a week initially, that's quite a jump as your second year in the business, right? And then thrown in a position for myself, I was 100% jobber with Grand Prix Wrestling. I remember the only night I went over was the last night of the Grand Prix Wrestling tour, and that's because the Cuban Assassin felt that I had earned it. And he kind of went against Emile and booked me to win. And when I got back home, Emile was furious that I got put over.
And that was Richie, was it not? Or Angel?
Angel booked it. Angel booked it, but it was Richie that I went over on. Mm-hmm. So for me, you know, winning, it doesn't matter, but it does when you do 156 jobs in a row.
Well, I mean, the thing is, if you're losing every night, that means the promoter doesn't have faith in you. Yeah. And so that's the only thing. I mean, it's like winning a belt doesn't really, it's not like you're, woohoo, I've won a belt. It's not like winning the Olympics, but it's telling you the promoter's got faith in you, and it's gonna secure you more bookings, you'll make more money. And especially overseas belts, you know that when you get that belt, you're guaranteed with at least one more tour. Yeah. So I mean, that's all you think about is from one tour to the next, really.
I think he wants a drink.
The ice and if you could hand me the whiskey and the 7-Up over there too, that'd be great. Just hand it to Peter.
We got our maitre d' Brian Langell here. Get some refreshments to the Sinners.
Jesus Christ, well, you want me to pour it for you too?
I do. Actually, can you hand me the ginger ale there too, please?
I'd be delighted.
Can you reach it?
Let me open that. Yeah, no, real action wrestling, and it was something that gave me confidence, and it was funny. I had no business being put in the position that we were in. The two of us were taken on as the bookers, and which ended up me being the booker and you being the guy who used to sleep 18 hours a day. You're a different man now, but you were a kid. Yeah. So I mean, you were in your early 20s. I was in party mode.
Yeah, you were in party mode, and so you know. But me, him, and Bobby, we were kind of the booking team. Mm-hmm. You know, I remember we used to always do a debrief after the big shows in Halifax. We used to run Halifax every second Thursday. Mm-hmm. And we were getting 1,000 people every second Thursday. It was crazy when you think about it. Yeah. And we would always, we'd go into this little meeting room, and we would discuss, you know, what the good points, what the bad points were, what are we doing next? You know, is this working? You know, it would be about an hour meeting, 2-hour meeting, and we'd be sitting and drinking, and you know, that's when we met. That's when Bobby Bash came in as a part owner of that one. But anyway, we learned a lot then. Bobby had a great mind for it. Mike has a great mind for it. I've got a pretty decent mind for it. Our promoters, the owners, Warren and Brian, they didn't really know anything, but they were passionate, and. You know, those were good times when you think back. Those after the I was telling somebody earlier today about one night in Halifax. I think it was when Kurrgan turned heel, so it was crazy. It was like the high point of wrestling I've ever seen around here. So we knew business was about to boom, and we had our debrief meeting at the end of the show, and we were there about an hour and a half, 2 hours, having a few drinks, and we thought, well, geez, it's getting late. We want to go downtown. So we ended up back at the house on Pepperell Street, and one of us came up with the idea that it's going to take the bar's going to close. We don't have time for all of us to have a shower, so separately. But we have to have a shower. Let's all just get in the shower at the same time. That'll be quick. So we get in there, all three of us. Me and Mike, the size we are. Bobby's not a small guy. He's 230, 240 pounds. We're all standing in the shower, realizing only one guy gets the water. We're standing there naked. And then we start fucking laughing how stupid. Next thing you know, we fall out of the shower onto the glass door. It breaks off. We landed. We're laying on the floor, laughing our asses off. One of I can't remember which one it was full of soap.
We had to go back to back so that only our butts touched when we were changing positions as we rotated around.
No sword fights.
The three of us had no sword fights. And then we fell through the glass. It was glass sliding doors on the side of the shower tub. We fell through it. And then as we got out, went back, the other guys were just getting back. We just kind of set it up against it.
There.
And then Bill Scullion came in and went to open the door, and the whole
smashes everywhere. We go running in like Tommy Boy. What'd you do?
He was genuinely like, sorry guys, I didn't mean to. But that house on Pemperell Street, that was some of the best times of my life.
Oh, totally.
There was
best summer of my wrestling career.
There was me, him, Bobby Roode, Chi Cruz. I'm trying to think who else. The Custom Made Man.
Gary.
Gary never lived at the house.
Didn't Robert live there?
Yes, he did. He lived with Massive. Him and Massive shared a room for a while. Gary Williams.
Kurrgan.
Yeah,
Kurrgan. Flesh. And we had guys.
Whichever girlfriend Flesh had at the time would usually be there.
But guys rotated in. We had Massive Damage came in. Eddie Watts came in, but couldn't handle living in the group environment very long.
Couldn't handle.
Him and Peter had a conflict.
Which I heard about years later.
Personalities.
Yeah, he did things. So basically, he went and spent money to go. And he wasn't making any money. He got himself a little apartment because he didn't like not being the fucking alpha.
And Chi Cruz. So we had a good group of guys in that house. We lived on Pemperell. The house was directly behind Hakeem.
Me and Bobby Roode shared a room. You and Chi shared a room.
Yeah.
Gary and Massive shared a room.
And
Kurrgan slept they slept in the living room upstairs.
I would come home and I was in
drop elbows on Kurrgan.
Yeah, I'd climb up on the thing and Kurrgan would be asleep. And I would drop elbows.
Fuck off, Mark Hughes.
Yeah. And I would take off running down the stairs, and he'd always say to me, "Have you never heard the expression, let sleeping giants lie?"
Apparently not.
I didn't care then. I didn't have a care in the world back then. I was just wide open, didn't give a shit about anything. I was wrestling every night. Having the time of my life. I was sitting around with my best friends that we were on the road with every night of the week, and it was...
me, you, and Bobby were inseparable that summer.
Yeah, we traveled around and at the Cardinal Sinners gimmick at the time, we were trying to be like the Four Horsemen. So it'd be me, him, and Bobby, and usually Gary or Kurrgan, one or the other would travel. And we rented a Lincoln Town car, and we had the big car, and we were driving in town to town. And it was like before T-shirt sales really came part of pro wrestling.
Well,
we did though.
Yeah.
We had T-shirts. We were like one.
They sold 1,200 T-shirts, Cardinal Sinners T-shirts that summer. We never got a dime.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, actually we got a percentage, and it went into a pool. And what the three of us did, I think we got like $3 or something.
It must be a goddamn small percentage because I don't remember it.
But what we did,
I still see the odd person wearing those old T-shirts. It was gray, and
I remember once a week because we were always stuck and piled in rooms together. And I remember in Yarmouth one night, we went and we got separate rooms where there was I think 2 of us in a room instead of 4 of us in a room at the time. And we went and got cases of beer, and we went out and we bought drinks for each other at the It was the night actually Bobby Roode met his wife.
Are you trying to kill me?
Probably. Well, yes, but I mean, not with that specific thing, but
there's a chip in that glass. Yeah, that night that we fell through the showers, the night that Bobby met his wife.
No, it was in Yarmouth that Bobby met his wife.
Oh, I thought he met her in
the Red Night in Yarmouth.
I thought for sure that he met her. So she came down to meet him in Halifax.
Later on.
Then,
yeah. At Windsor.
His ex-wife.
It was in Windsor.
He's on his third wife.
Yeah. I can't keep track. So then it was the night Buddy Lane came in. He came in. Buddy Lane was the first time he ever came out with us. And he stayed down in Yarmouth because he didn't want to drive back. And he comes in and...
We're drinking in the hotel. We drank at the Yarmouth Arena after the show.
Yeah.
Remember, Bobby was doing the shoveling thing that Lawler's son used to do.
Yes.
Yeah. It was. Anyway, we were partying at the arena for probably 2 hours, and we go back to the hotel and we're partying more. Buddy Lane's trying to keep up with us, and then he can't.
I was going to say, how'd that go?
He passed out cold, but
before
that wasn't
that,
the end of the story.
He came in, and we had gotten a room. We were sitting in there drinking. It was me, him, and Bobby. And we're drinking in the hotel room. And Buddy Lane kicks open the door. He comes in. He goes, "Rude, what the fuck are you doing, you blowjob?" He's like, "Get the fuck out." He goes, "Look at you guys." He goes, "You're not ready to go out. You don't got the dungarees on. He goes, "You don't have the cowboy boots. I got the Planet Hollywood jacket." He pops the collar up on the jacket. He goes,
"These boots aren't fucking made for dancing," he said.
He goes, "We're going into the bar tonight. If anybody fucks with me," he goes, "they're getting a bat or my fist outside the
That's exactly what he said.
Yeah. He goes, "So nobody better fuck around with us today."
And then 5 minutes later, he's out cold. But we're at the bar, and we're it's almost closing time. They hadn't called last call yet, and we're sitting around drinking, having a good time. We look over at the front door. Buddy Lane arrives.
Yeah.
He woke up and he made his entrance. At this time, he had the collar turned up in the air like it's like the Lords of Flatbush. He walks in with the Planet Hollywood satin jacket with the collar up, sunglasses on, cowboy boots, skin tight jeans,
Dungarees.
and he walks in, just stands there and looks around like this. Nobody gives a fuck. And we're laughing our heads off. And then he sees us and walks over.
Buddy Lane is one of
those
greatest
moments in time.
He's one of the greatest personalities outside of the wrestling ring ever. I see Buddy.
You guys, you weren't there, but Lansville, you'd have met him when he came to an ISW show recently.
Yeah, he's
you'd have met him before.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I love Buddy. He's one of my favorite characters.
Great.
Like outside of the ring and in the back, he's smart. He knows how to travel. He's
Remember when he was telling us that he
ever.
fucked Paula Abdul? Yeah, that fucking Paula Abdul. I splashed her. She was a Winnipeg Blue Bombers cheerleader. I said, no, she wasn't. She was an LA Lakers cheerleader. Fuck you, Smith. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about, you fucking blowjob. All right. You know who else I fucked? I said, well, who, buddy? Luba.
Yeah, he's one of the greatest. Like, I learned so much from Buddy Lane in and out of the ring, and he's one of the most entertaining people ever. I see Buddy usually a couple times a summer now. Buddy's in town. He calls me. We go over, have a couple beers, shoot the shit. Buddy's awesome. Yeah, he is. And again, there's another guy from that era that I said when we were breaking in. You talk about the Cuban Assassins and all these guys. But Buddy Lane actually did a lot to help me. He actually helped get me broke into the business. He knew Ralph Josie, who I used to work collecting money. That's what I did. That was my job before I got into wrestling. I collected money. I was a bill collector. And he was friends with him. And he kind of put me over to Emile, too, after I had sent the letter and the pictures. And all
I knew Buddy Lane a little bit before I got into wrestling because he was always at bodybuilding shows. And back then, there was a relationship between competitive bodybuilding and pro wrestling because every wrestler worked out. Mm-hmm. So we'd all, there was way less gyms. So everybody who was in a gym regularly all knew each other. But now you'd never find a wrestler at a bodybuilding show.
Yeah.
Or a bodybuilder at a wrestling show.
Yeah. Oh, certainly a different time.
Yeah.
Memories of your first summer together in 1999 for the Grand Prix?
Can't remember any of it. I think we did some wrestling shows, didn't we?
In between the drinking. It was actually one of the memories that I have is, I think it might have been the first night. And this is one of the first nights we were on the road together. We were coming back, and it happened to be by Amherst, by this
wasn't the first night, but
not the first night. The first night coming
back,
like to the town
from North Sydney.
Yeah, we were driving back, and it was early in the morning, and we were in the ring truck at the time. It was me, him, Ron Gauguin, and Butcher Vachon. And when we were coming back, we got a flat tire, and it was right by Amherst, by that battery company, place that made batteries or just
that has batteries. The big digital time. It says the time 1 second, and then the temperature the next.
So the tire broke down. The spare tire was underneath, and there was a release in the glove compartment. But we didn't know that there was a release. And so Butcher was underneath, and him and Ron were arguing like cats and dogs, yelling at each other in French. And we didn't know what that, but we tell by the body language and the volume and the tone.
We sat there for hours.
And he was underneath, and they cut it off. Butcher eventually cut the drop thing off the tire. We finally got on, we went back. Then I ended up staying at his place on First Street. Is that the name? Was that the apartment?
Yeah, Dominion Street.
Stayed at his place for the night, and he brought me in and let me stay at his place because I can't remember why I didn't go back to where I was living.
Because it was too late, probably.
Yeah.
It was like 6 in the morning when we got back. And that was before cell phones, so my wife was panicking, my future wife, she was panicking. Funnily enough, I relived that experience just 2 months ago. We were coming from somewhere. We had a long drive ahead. We were in London. We were heading back to Liverpool, and we blow a tire. And there was me and Spitty and a couple of New Zealand lads, freezing cold out. Not one of us knew how to change that motherfucking tire. We had to call AAA. AAA came an hour later, and the guy's like, it was like one of those guys like one of those grease monkey kind of guys, like a proper man. He just looks at us, and
disgust.
2 seconds later, he's got the tire changed, and see you guys, have a good night.
100 pounds.
Yeah, sorry to bother you. Off we went. I've had about 5 blown tire experiences in my wrestling career, and only once did we manage to get the tire changed. That was me and Titus in Oxford, Nova Scotia. Maybe 3 years ago.
But that first year in wrestling, I remember the first year I did 156 matches that year. Straight. We were on the road from May 15th or something.
We had 2 days off in the middle of the tour, and everybody complained. It was an outrage to us. What do you mean? We're not getting paid for 2 days. Yeah. It was an outrage. And now, but wrestlers are always outraged. I was telling Jeremy on the way over, I used to be outraged if I'd go to England in January, we'd be outraged because there was only 18 jobs in January. And then February, there'd be like 42 jobs. We're outraged because there was 42 jobs. So we're either not working enough or we're working too much. There's always something to complain about.
Yeah.
But the real action wrestling days to me were way more enjoyable than the Grand Prix. Grand Prix, I worked 2 years for Grand Prix, and I felt stressed and overburdened the whole time because all I thought was every night I had the feeling I'm going to be exposed for not being ready for I'm carrying the belts. I'm not very good. I'm not really properly trained. I was a slow learner. It took me a few years to get my legs under me.
My first year was terrible too. Right. Yeah. So when I got,
but you had almost no training.
Right,
very little training.
I learned how to take a bump
and how to get chopped,
how to get punched in the throat by Emile. I learned how to kind of throw a kick. I knew how to take a front bump, a back bump.
You were a good bumper right from the start.
Yeah,
I didn't take a decent bump for a couple of years.
And so after that, but I just got thrown baptism by fire. Right, a couple of weekends of training, of basically getting punched in the throat and kicked and everything, and then thrown right in. And Bobby Bass was pissed off at me because I didn't know how to work, so he wasn't giving me anything. He was gobbling me up. And I'll remember this forever. Butcher Vachon, actually, Roger Taro, blasted him in Fredericton. You're not giving this kid anything. And Bobby Bass yelled back, he doesn't know how to do anything. He's like, well, he doesn't know how to do anything because you're not letting him try anything. He didn't.
I remember Emile was on the fence about letting you go.
Yeah.
He didn't understand that you weren't trained. So Gary stepped up. Would it have been Cocan or Berwick?
It was Truro, actually.
Okay.
That Gary and I worked, so he worked with me, and Gary stepped up and he saved my job. Gary stepped
Totally.
up and he had.
You guys had a fabulous match.
And then after that, the Cuban did, and the Cuban and I in Charlottetown, and then Emile knew that I could draw in my hometown because I think we drew 900 or something here at Civic Center.
It was busy.
So then he realized, well, if we go to PEI more, this guy's going to be worth his wage if just come to PEI often enough. And then, but Gary was the one that was sitting on the fence. It was in that first 2 weeks, and he was just going to tell me to stay home. And it was in Truro, Gary and I. And actually, our picture was in the paper in Truro. And Gary saved my ass. I would have never got to experience probably a lot of the things I did if it wasn't for Gary saving my ass that night.
I was so miserable that summer. At one point towards the end, you got hurt. You chipped a bone off your hip or something.
Yeah, and tore part of my quad. Yeah.
And I remember you were off for a week or something, and I remember being jealous. Thinking for that lucky bastard. He's sitting home and he's in agony, but at least he gets to stay home for a week. Because I just the pressure on me to working on top or near top, and I knew that I needed more, and It all came together in the end, but the only thing I enjoyed about that summer, well, I enjoyed the guys, and we had a great time. Him and I partied every night, so that part was great. But the actual at the ring, and Emile's not an encouraging guy. If he's not happy with what you're doing, you get yelled at. And I'm not a guy that enjoys being yelled at.
And my first year, I was on ring crew, so I set up the ring with Rongo Gann, just the two of us. So I was doing all the leg work, like all the lifting and everything like that. And being verbally abused by Ron every night. Oh, you didn't know this. And so I was doing that. So I'd do the opening match, or the second match usually, and then I'd come back in the tag later on and I'd just sell. I never got any offense. I just sold and sold and sold. So I just bump. And then at the end of it, I'd tear the ring down. And you know what? Like, I look at it now, and today somebody'd be filing some grievance or something now. But I remember one night the boys sat there and they threw like old French fries at me and threw Coke cans at me, Demore and Chi-Chi for them. But Chi-Chi was always good to me. But that night he participated, and you and everybody like just kind of like harassing me a bit while I was doing it. And I was just like, oh, fuck, this sucks. You know what I mean? But I was loving being a pro wrestler, so it was all worth it. But there were some funny nights. The night we were in Digby, and I was at that point. I remember I was fed up with Ron abusing the shit out of me and everything. And Ron was always trying to massage my shoulders and everything. He had a thing for me. And early in the night before we went out. So we got back, we went out and drank that night, went down to Club 98, we came back. And what I did is I always slept on the floor because I was a green guy, so I had an air mattress with me. And I'd always have my air mattress blown up, and then I'd come back and just crash on my air mattress in the room on the floor. But that night I didn't. I was just so pissed off.
Well, you used to have this little thing that's a little automatic thing
the batteries
broke.
Yeah, the batteries went dead.
Yeah.
And I came back at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was trying to blow it up with my mouth, and I
were hiccuping. You're blowing it up and hiccuping. And I'm laying there trying to get to sleep, thinking, like tomorrow morning when he lets the air out, do the hiccup noises come back out?
But we went into the room, and he says to me, he goes, Mike, you're going to wake up Ron. He goes, hey, Ron's going to be all pissed off like that. And I was hiccuping, I was blowing the thing. I went, fuck it, Ron. Give a fuck about Ron right now. Fuck Ron like this. And then
you hear Ron go.
But I didn't care. At that point, I was like, I don't give a shit. So then I fell asleep and didn't put the thing on. I woke up the next morning, this sweaty, hot, with this vinyl air mattress stuck to me, alcohol pouring out of my veins with this thing like stuck, sweat right onto me. But there was a lot of nights like that. I remember
earlier that night, we were in a pizza joint, and he's passed out at the table like this, and just wakes up, looks at some stranger who's just sitting there innocently eating his pizza. Like, looks up. What the fuck are you looking at? And he goes back to sleep. The guy's like, I didn't do anything.
Just young and full of piss and vinegar. All I wanted to do was drink and fight or whatever, right? Like, it was just, I was an idiot, but I had a lot of fun.
Did you just get into any physical altercations with fans or people in the street?
Yeah, we did. It was a street there. I think we got arrested, like the police involved anyway, for a week. It was like hell week.
I got banned from Digby for 2 years.
We both did.
Wasn't allowed in the town.
We both did.
You were banned too?
We remember that was the. Do you want to tell this?
No, that's a kind of a.
Well,
I hit a guy,
so
and he was split from there down across his nose and his lip to there. So it's basically open to his skull right there. And then I got piled on, and I went and got you guys. You guys were at the motel.
Yeah.
You guys were falling asleep. I don't know why. Anyway.
Well, this is what happened earlier in the night. We were at Club 98, and at the time in Digby, there was a lot of racial tension at the time. So he wanted to go over and get pizza. We were all pretty full at the time. But on the other side of the street, there was a lot of African Canadians on the other side of the thing, and everybody was telling us, don't go over there to that pizza joint. And we were like, all right, we're going home. And he said, fuck that, I'm going to get pizza. I want pizza. This has got nothing to do with me. I just want pizza. So he went over to get pizza. And then I don't know what happened there. That what he just said. So me and Custom Made Man, Mark Miller, and Autobahn, God rest his soul, awesome brother. But he's like a short person, little person, midget, whatever you want to call it. And so we were the only ones there. The rest of the crew had driven back to Halifax, but we decided we were going to stay in Digby and party that night. So I remember him coming back. He's got like a big welt on his head. His shirt's ripped. And he goes, come on, we're going back. And I was like, going back? Get the boys. I'm like, there is no boys. There's just me, Custom, and Otto. And he's like, well, we're going back. I was like, all right, let's go back. So we go back down, and we go into the pizza shop. And the guy that started the whole thing, or suckered you, or whatever the case may be, was standing right in front of the pizza warmer, like that glass thing. And Pete came in, and he threw this punch like a Nolan Ryan fastball and just smashed this guy, and his head went into the pizza warmer. The guy goes down the ground, and then Pete throws his hammer fist that just like smashes the guy's face. And then all of a sudden everybody came in. I think I got like one punch in, and then everybody went down. Like,
I got kicked by 50 different people.
yeah, we just got shut down. Some guy jumped on his back,
choked me almost
him from
unconscious.
behind. I went down. I remember I was down like this, covering up and getting the boots put to me and everything. I just remember Otto being underneath the table when I looked up over like this, kicking like this out from underneath the table. And I don't know where Custom went. I didn't see all that. And then the police came in and they took us out, and they handcuffed you, didn't they?
Yeah.
And then they took you to jail.
Yeah.
So then he went to jail, and they said to us, okay, you can go home. Go home now. There's 50 people that just beat the crap out of us, and they want to. You're just going to let us go out on the street like that? And he's like, all right, then I guess we'll drive you back to the Siesta Motel. And they took him to jail and said, you can come get your buddy at 8 o'clock in the morning. But I think they called it like 6 and said, please come get your friend. He's driving us nuts here. He's threatening us and yelling at us. So, and then they told, we weren't allowed, we got banned from the U or banned from Digby.
And then the next year, it's a couple years later, Jim Neidhart, we're driving by. I think I was driving.
You were.
And Neidhart's like, he's in the passenger seat.
We'd stop to get gas. We'd run out of gas.
Yeah, he goes, this is a town, isn't it? Let's go for a drink. I said, I can't, man. I'm barred. I'll be thrown in jail if I show my face in this town. They'll never know it's you. Come on, man. Yeah, I'm gonna walk in with Jim Neidhart. That's my cover.
And at the time, like massive guy, long blonde, bleach blonde hair. Me with the long blonde hair.
And Jim Neidhart. Who everybody knew.
In a small town that they're probably still talking about the brawl and everything that happened from the year before. And we pull in to get gas, and Jim runs across the street to a bar, and he orders like 6 beer or something like that. We had to go find him to like get him back.
And when we finally got back to, I was living in Shediac then. We pull in. Jim was staying at my house one night only. He was supposed to stay for the summer.
You only lasted one night.
So my wife had bought me for Christmas a home brewing kit.
So I made up I had like a 24 beer, just freshly bottled, but they have to sit for a few weeks before you open them. And so I told Jim, I said the beer were in the room that he was staying. I said, don't touch those beer. They're no good. There's like this much sediment sitting at the bottom of them. So I go to bed and I swore I heard. I thought, no. I had just clearly told him, don't drink that. No way did he do it. So anyway, I fall asleep. I wake up in the morning and it was time to go to the next town. So I knock on the door, 24 empty beer. He drank every one. Every one. It sounds unbelievable, but you know Jim Neidhart, he drank every one. So I told him, Jim, you can't stay at my house anymore. So we put him in a hotel. We went to the gym that day, and he went in and he puts like 400 pounds on the bench press, takes it off, boop, one easy rep, puts it back, goes and sits in the car. I said, that's all you do, one rep? And that's all I need, he says. He was huge.
Yeah, he was one of the strongest guys ever, man. He came in, he had that singlet with all the stripes on, the weightlifting belt on, and he'd come in. He might warm up with like 315 or something and rep off like 6 or 7, and then he'd put like 4 or something on.
He was the shortest offensive lineman in the NFL for the entire decade of the 1970s. So think about how good you have to be a 5'10" or 6 foot offensive lineman in the NFL. Your average height for an offensive lineman now would be about 6'7", 6'8". Then it would have been 6'4", 6'5". And for him to be under 6 foot and play that position, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, incredible.
A freak of an athlete.
We were actually the ones that were with him when we had to break the news to him that Digby had died, because I was one of the few people that had a cell phone at the time. And they had called, and we were driving back from the gym, actually, and he lost it, man. Obviously so, right? His best friend, like one of the things. But, man, he was so emotional, you know what I mean? Like, passionate about everything. It was a terrible thing to see, right? And for us, too, right? Like, David Boy Smith, one of the legends, you grow up watching and stuff and knowing how close they were. And, you know, to have to witness that, it was a terrible thing. Like, Jim, God rest his soul, he was a character, man. One of the funniest and most physically impressive and strongest. And he was another guy that was a guy that when we were on tour together, he'd give you some information. You know, oh, you're a good hand, you're a good hand. Like, you know, he's always very encouraging, right? Awesome guy.
So how did he make his way to the Maritimes? Who brought him in?
Bash.
Bobby Bass, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, he didn't stay long. It was
right after Davey died, he left.
I think he was, they were getting ready to send him home too. He was just too much.
Well, when Davey died, he trashed his hotel room, right?
He was drinking too much. He was.
That sent him off the deep end, right?
But I'll tell you, he was a underrated worker.
Yeah.
I always thought his work looked, he doesn't do he didn't do fancy stuff, so newer fans wouldn't appreciate his work, but his work was believable.
Do you know what he did, though, that was super impressive to me? He'd stand on the apron and he'd do that slingshot shoulder tackle.
Yeah,
man. And, like, that's super impressive.
280 pounds? Freaking right.
Come flying through like a torpedo missile. Like, yeah, it's super impressive.
Now, getting back to your summer of '99 for a second, Pete, you had the name the Mighty Hercules and Mike, you were Cowboy with a C. Yeah. Mike Hughes. What are your thoughts? And you're working babyface at that. What were your thoughts on that? The names and working babyface.
Well, I didn't care for it, but it is what it is.
Mine was explained to me. So funny enough, the irony in the whole thing. The promoter that was originally in the Maritimes in the 40s and 50s was Cowboy Len Hughes. So Emile wanted to book me as his great-grandson or grandson or whatever. But the funny story about the whole thing was Len Hughes was the promoter in the Maritimes, and he was illiterate. And Emile, at the end of it, would, because he was literate and stuff, he would do all the contracts with the arenas. And Emile actually went in to do the arenas, and he didn't like the way that Len Hughes was booking it. He thought it was too old school, and Emile wanted to bring in the midgets and the girls and all this kind of stuff. So he went to get the guarantees for Len Hughes, and he actually got the guarantees put in his name. So he kind of stole the territory from Cowboy Len Hughes. And then funny enough, later on, when Real Action Wrestling opened, his grandson that Emile, Emile felt that I stole the territory from him at the time when I opened Real Action Wrestling with Scott Gallant, and then later with us running it with Real Action Wrestling. The funniness of the irony of me being billed as Cowboy letting me use his son, and then the whole way that the whole thing turned out in the end. I thought it was kind of funny.
So were you guys content working babyface that summer?
Do what you're told. Yeah, you just do what the promoter wants.
I still do what I still like. I don't get that. You know, just in the last couple of years running IHW wrestling, I can't believe the nerve of some guys saying, "Well, this is what I want to do." I don't care what you want to do. You don't tell me what you want to do. The promoter tells you what they want you to do, and if you don't like it, take a fucking hike, pal. But you know, I'm still like that. I show up just no matter where I am in the world. I show up. What do you want me to do? Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for
and you know, and I'll go do what they ask me to do. I'll get my money. Go on to the next town. I don't give a fucking unless it draws a line that would bother me ethically and morally. I don't care if I win. I don't care if I lose. I don't care if I'm a good guy. I mean, I prefer to be a heel. But, you know, you want to call me Cinderella and have me pinned in 30 seconds? Pay me. I don't give a fuck.
For me, I don't care. Like, I worked as Cowboy Mike Hughes with a C. As a cowboy hat, jean jacket, jean wearing cowboy. I worked as Cowboy Mike Hughes, the biker, Harley, leather kind of stuff. I worked as Iron Mike Hughes. I worked as Hangman Hughes. I worked as Kane. I did Kane gimmick in England for a while and wore the Kane suit and the Kane mask. But I'll be honest, at that point in my career, I hated it. And I was furious that I had to work Kane as Kane because I was...
You did Kane better than Kane, though.
But
I worked in a tag match against you as Kane one time in England. And you did Kane better than you were Kane.
Yeah, and so that was the thing. When I was asked to do it, I was going to do it the best. I studied Kane. I walked to the ring as Kane. I did the chops like Kane. I did the whole thing off the top. But I hated doing it because I was
call bullshit on that. You two were told you were going to do it an hour before the match.
Yes,
you already knew Kane's suit. I was there.
Okay, so
you were handed the filthy fucking Kane suit and the mask and the wig.
And a wig.
You had the hair. You had the hair.
Yeah.
So they gave you the mask and the suit and said you're Kane tonight, and you went out and you did Kane as Kane.
And what was funny is, and then I studied it afterwards to make sure I had everything down. What was funny is I did Kane to the T. And Brian Dixon, who's never watched Kane at all, and Brian Dixon is one of the greatest promoters of all time. Other than Vince McMahon, he's probably the best and most consistent.
50-year anniversary coming up.
And I went in and I came back and Dixon was pissed. He said, "Fucking hell, Hughes, what are you doing out there? You don't know how to do Kane." Kane would be on the apron, clapping his hands and stomping his feet in the crowd. And I was like, that's when I was mad because I did Kane. I remember I took my glove off, the glove of the original Kane, and I threw it across the room, and it went by Robbie Brookside's nose by like this much. And I remember Brookside just looked at me, and he understood. But I'd run a mile for that. Yeah.
I remember you coming. It was in Bognor Regis. I remember you coming out and you were doing it with the glove like Kane. Fucking hell, I can't even remember who my tag partner was or who your tag partner was. But I remember jawing at you from corner to corner, just fucking taking the piss out of you. But I have to admit, it was an impressive Kane performance. We've all been. I did Hulk Hogan for 2 weeks. In Ireland in 2002, made the most money I'd ever made in my career at that point by a million miles. Yeah, I didn't like it, but it was my foot in the door. It got my foot in the door in Ireland and England and
most of your career spent in Europe because of
it. Ireland got me to England. England got me to Germany. Kept me in England, and everything's kind of most of probably 80-90% of my career has been in Europe and. It was all because I went and did Hulk Hogan in Ireland in 2002.
Have you ever done any other imitations?
No. I was originally supposed to do a Triple H gimmick. I had long hair then. So they wanted me to be Quadruple H. But,
which is funny because when I was in Puerto Rico, when Dave Meltzer did the dirt sheets, he would always write me as Double H, Hangman Hughes. Mm-hmm. So I was Double H instead of Triple H. So we had Double H and Quadruple H over here at the Cardinal Sinners.
But they called me at the last second. They said, dye your hair blonde, wear a bandana, and get some kind of red tights. You're Hulk Hogan. Oh, Jesus Christ. That's a big difference, They didn't call me Hulk Hogan, they called me Hollywood. But every night I walked out, it was a 2-week tour, every night I walked out thinking they're going to laugh their asses off at me. But they bought it. Just went out and did this and dropped a leg. It was the easiest 2 weeks of my career. We had a Welsh guy working as The Rock. And
Frankie Sloan working as the 1-2-3 Kid, I think.
He was doing Matt Hardy by then. Yeah. We had a Gold Dust who was a better Gold Dust than Gold Dust. Wow. Yeah, we had a Bobby Ray Dudley who'd never seen it. He was like 56, 60 years old. Didn't know who Bobby Ray Dudley was. He just wore camouflage pants and went out and worked. They called him Bobby Ray Dudley.
Legion of Doom.
Yep.
Your favorite spots around the Maritime Loop, the Grand Prix or real action?
PEI right now is my favorite place.
By far PEI, but outside of PEI, Kentville was always my favorite.
Kentville, Halifax, the nights we do, because we had Halifax Rock.
Yeah.
And we'd become...
Those were special nights.
Yeah, we'd become...
Yarmouth was a good one.
A part of the culture in Halifax. We'd be at the bars, we'd get announced while we're coming into the bars, the DJs would announce us.
The bars would be lined up hundreds deep.
Yeah.
And we would just walk in.
Yeah.
You know, we owned that city. It was all down to Flesh, or mostly down to Flesh. Flesh owned that city.
Yeah.
He walked in, he owned Halifax within a week.
And we were all...
Every facet of business in Halifax, Flesh was delving into.
Yeah.
He's just an electric guy.
We were judging wet t-shirt competitions, Jello wrestling things. We were special guests in the VIP lounges. We went out and we didn't like dress normal. We had like leather pants on, these shiny glitzy shirts that sparkled there. And we went out and we were all big guys, right? We were all 6'4", 260 plus, 240 plus. Bobby Roode had the bleach blonde hair, the bleach blonde handlebar mustache. Pete had long blonde, bleach blonde hair. I had long black hair. Gary Williams had the long hair, the goatee.
Gary never went out though.
No,
hardly ever.
Flesh.
Yeah, Flesh was always
looked like Scott Steiner at the time, the exact replica, except he was probably bigger. And so we had all these characters that were just walking in, and if they were wrestling fans, they knew who we were. If they weren't wrestling fans, they wanted to know who we were because we stuck out like. And wrestling was cool at the time.
And we would meet these people out. You know, none of us were picking fights or being jackasses. We were just we were representing our product. And you know, you'd meet these people in a bar, and then you look out at the next show, and they're all there. Mm-hmm. You know, they wanted to, you know, they wanted to be part of what we were doing. And but to be fair, I mean, and I was telling this to somebody earlier. I mean, yeah, people think, well, why did Real Action Wrestling go to business? I mean, you guys were getting huge crowds. Well, yeah, we were in Halifax and Kentville, but that was it. We'd go
North Sydney, we did well.
Okay, in North Sydney. Yeah. And well in Yarmouth, but we didn't go often. Yeah. But then there'd be the Sherbrooks and the Lunenburgs and every other town. Berwick, we never did well. We never did Kentville. We started doing Kentville instead. We did a lot of 75s and 100s too.
Yeah.
You know, and... these guys, we only had 4. The only local wrestlers were me, you, and Gary, and Kurrgan when Kurrgan, and Duke. That was it. But everybody else had to come in from out of town and be housed. So, in order for them to come in from wherever they were from all over the world, for them to come and stay an entire summer, you can't just offer them 3 nights of work, a week of work. It had to be 7 nights a week. So they obviously they absorbed more losses than gains, and they lasted 2 years.
But what we found out later on, though, too, is one of the owners has become infamous for embezzling money.
Yeah, but I still don't think they were turning a profit. I think that they could have. I think we all made the mistake of the next year when Bobby Bass decided to open up ACW and they offered us all $250 extra a week. We all just immediately didn't think and thought, that's $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
You know, of course, yeah.
We split the roster.
Well, yeah, me, you, and Bobby were the only ones that he wanted, really.
Yeah.
So I told him, I said, if you're going to take, we're the 3 best heels in the Maritimes at the time.
Yeah.
If you're going to take the 3 best heels, then that leaves the 3 best baby faces with the competition, Duke, Gary, and Chi-Chi. I said, automatically you're leaving either bring us all, and we would have negotiated. If we'd have been smart, we'd have stayed with real action wrestling.
Yeah.
If I'm looking back, and probably they'd still be in business.
Yeah.
Because we were when we did that Kurrgan heel turn in 2001, and the houses went from 1,000 to 1,300 bi-weekly in Halifax. We could have built on that, and we could have came up with some fresh booking ideas, started to hot shot a little bit when needed. Probably still be going, but we went for the quick payoff.
Yeah.
And luckily, that as Bass was we saw the writing on the wall, and Real Action Wrestling shut down in August. Bass shut down in September. I went to Ireland for my first tour in mid-September, so I stepped right into full-time work in England, and I think I brought you over the next summer.
Yeah.
So
February, actually.
Yeah, there you go. So we had something to go. It locked out for us, but for most of the guys, it didn't. I mean,
That's true.
It ended a few careers, basically.
Yeah, we were lucky. We were both big guys at that point that could work, that could cut a promo. And, there wasn't at the time a lot of guys that were 6'5", 6'6". And I was always 270 plus at the time, got as high as 300 myself at points in my career then. But there wasn't a lot of guys that were that big anymore in wrestling. It was declining the amount of big guys that could work. So we actually were lucky that kept us busy, and we would go in and do my whole career in most places. Like when I went to Puerto Rico, is I go in and come in strong as a heel, beat up all the undercard guys, go in and give smash them, go in and give the middle card guys good matches, but then get put over, and then work my way into the main event, and then drop down the main event back to the middle card guys and go back. But I always knew what my job was. Never pissing and moaning. I knew I was a big guy that was a heel and did my job.
I've had the same job for the last 17 years since I started going to Europe. I go into a place, I kill everybody. I have a good little competitive feud with the top guy. I leave on my back.
Yeah.
Then I go to the next place, and then I end up getting rotated back into the same place eventually. And in England it's kind of different because they don't really do G's, or angles. It's kind of ice-capades where you just put on a good show. Yeah. And very, very rarely. I mean, the only angle that I was involved in England that drew and was followed up on would have been me and Brookside. I've worked James Mason hundreds of times, but they're always just matches. What the finish is the finish. So you're just trying to make the people happy that night. You're not building towards something. But he's got a different business structure. But even Germany, I know that I'm probably towards that point now in my most recent Germany run. I've been dominant, but I will very soon, probably by this October, be knocked off, and that's it. That's I was only promised a year run, and I'm getting close to 2, so I'm happy with that. You usually just take you kind of take things toward a time. Yeah. And if they want you back, that's great. But it's kind of the mark of a worker too. Is or not really a worker, but a worker. Your value is in, do you get invited back to a place?
And knowing what your job is, and not pissing and moaning about it, and just going in and adding, tweaking to do what's best for you and for business. Because what's best for business is best for you.
Yeah.
So being able to throw in your little niche and how to do that, that's the best for everybody, right? So
I was wondering, did you guys team up before Real Action, like in Grand Prix that first year?
No,
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Maybe. I don't know. If we did, it was me going in and fucking bumping the shit out and giving.
I remember doing run-ins with them. I remember one night we were doing a run-in in North Sydney, and we're back in those days. We could both run like Ben Johnson. I dive into the ring. I look around. Where the fuck is Mike? Mike slipped in a puddle of water on the way and slid right underneath right underneath the ring.
So fast. He couldn't get stopped. Yeah, I slid right underneath the ring. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Another funny run in Grand Prix Wrestling that year. somebody had a video camera, not one of these little ones, digital things, those big ones with the big tapes that go on the side. And somebody was recording it, manning the camera for Jeff Dupre. So the Cubans came in and they were beating up Gary Williams, I think, or Rene Dupre. I can't remember who it was. So I came in. It was a layered run-in. So I came running in, and I come in, I get one punch, and then the Cubans just beat the shit out of me and throw me out. And then I think it was either Gary or Rene, vice versa, came in. I think Gary was getting beat up. I made the save. Rene came in and made the save at the end. But somebody was sitting by the camera with the mic on, and the guy goes, "Why is that guy running in? He gets beat up every night anyway." So we were sitting back watching the other night, and all the boys were teasing me, laughing. Like I said, I did like 155 jobs in a row, and then won the last night out of 156 nights, right? So it was funny that way.
Mike, that summer, do you have any matches that stick out as some of your favorites from that rookie year?
Gary Williams would always do his best to make me look like $1 million. Cuban Assassin in Charlottetown, obviously. The place was packed. Like I said, there was 900 people here. The big banners with Hughes, number one, and all that. So that was a great night. North Sydney, there was a lot of nights there. And actually, one of the one nights that I felt the most privileged with, and all I did was get beat up, was in Halifax. Me, Leo Burke, I think it was Leo's last match, maybe. Me, Leo, and the Beast versus the Cuban Assassins and Gary Williams. And so I got to go in. I remember this distinctly. I went in and I took all the heat and everything. And then I was supposed to come out and make the hot tag to Leo. Leo steps through the rope and his knee goes sideways.
Halifax.
Yeah, in Halifax. His knee just pops out sideways. And he goes, "Make a comeback, kid." I didn't know what a comeback was because I was just getting the shit beat out of me the whole summer. I didn't know how to make a real comeback. So I was like, just.
And the thing is, wrestling jargon now, probably even most fans would know what a comeback is. We didn't.
Yeah.
There was no term. We didn't hear terms like that. We just went in the ring and did what we were told.
So I would start probably potatoing the shit out of the Cubans and Gary. Just start like throwing, because I was confused. I didn't know what to do. I was panicking. And then Leo went over in the corner and like just popped his knee back into place and then got up and made the comeback. And I was like, and then he's like, "I got this kid," because I was probably doing it so terrible that he's like, "I better get this knee back into place." Popped it back into place, got up, started making the comeback. And yeah, that night there, like I said, the place, I have pictures at home, and I just went through a photo album the other night, and somebody was taking pictures. The Halifax Forum was packed to the rafters. Like, I mean,
Emile said there was only 400 people.
Emile,
400 people in the first 3 rows. There was standing room. There was at least, but the promoters were different back in the day. Yeah. Promoters used to tell you there was less people. Now they try to pad it to sound good on social media. Back then, promoters thought, well, if they know how much I drew, then they might ask for more money.
I mean, only if there was 400 people there, he'd say there was 100, but they're really fat.
2 chairs each.
The question I asked Mike be, those first 2 years in Grand Prix, any matches stick out?
I worked Joe Legend most of the time in 1999. 1998, I worked Butcher Vachon most nights. But to be honest, in both years, my favorite matches would have been the odd time I used to get in with Gary Williams. Because Gary was only in the business a year before me, but he was a natural. He was just so good. He's still to this day, I think he could get in the ring, and I think he was the cream of the crop of that early generation. Because he was so easy, it was uncomplicated, and he had no ego at all. His job was, he just wanted to have a good match, help guys that were struggling, and I was struggling then. I mean,
yeah, he was so good.
Thank fuck I was 6'6" and had a physique, because I wasn't getting it in the ring. But Gary would get in, he would be patient, and we'd have good matches. And Gary's the guy that got me into wrestling, so he's the guy that got my foot in the door. So I can't say enough good things about Gary. He's awesome. The salt of the earth.
He is a great guy. I went through a point, and I'll tell you this, I resented Gary Williams for a while because he was so talented, but I didn't feel that because I would work my ass off, and I didn't have an eighth of the talent that Gary Williams did. But he'd never push it. Everything came so naturally easy to him. And I was at a point where I was like, "You motherfucker!" It was like it was like a little bit of a thing, like with me and Gary. Gary and I love each other. We're brothers, right? But I was like, "Man, I wish you would just work as hard as I am right now, because you would be the best wrestler in the world. You're so talented, right?" Yeah, Gary was so good. I'll tell you a memory I have of I don't know if it was real action wrestling or if it was Grand Prix. You and Joe Legend were working the whole time. And Joe gave you a leg drop off the top in North Sydney. And I could probably be charged for this, but I'm going to say it anyway. But
knocked me out cold.
So Joe did a leg drop off the top. And he landed ass first right on Pete's head. Joe Legend's a big guy. He was probably 240, 250, something like that.
It was real action because Bobby was with us.
That's right. And he landed right on Pete's head, knocked Pete out cold. So he wins the match or whatever. So Pete comes in the back, concussed all the fuck. He comes in and he goes, "How'd the finish go?" "It's good, man. The fucking came off good or whatever." He's like, "Okay." And he turns around, he sits down, he goes down. "So how'd the finish go?" I'm like, "I just told you, it went great, man." He's like, "It was fine." "Oh, good. Goes down, do a couple more. "So how'd the finish go?" I was like, "I just fucking told you, the finish went great." Does a few more laces. "So how'd the finish go?" Asked me this like 20 times. So we go to get in the back of the car. Gary'd always drive. And Pete and I and Bobby sit in the back, and we'd always have like a couple cases of beer, and we'd drive. We'd have to go from North Sydney back to Moncton. So it was like a 5 hour drive probably.
Yeah, 500 kilometers.
So we drive the whole way. So we get in the back of the car, and Pete looks over and, "So how'd the finish go?" And I was like, "I already told you, I'm fucking fine." He's like, "Okay, good." And he looks out the window, and he looks like, "So how'd the finish go?" I was like, "Holy fuck." So I said, Gary, you got any volume on you?" And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah." So Pete asked me for another beer. I throw a couple of volume in Pete's drink. The worst thing you could do for a concussion.
Well, not now the protocol's changed, but at that time it was thought.
Check every hour.
Yeah, don't let the guy fall asleep. So these guys, and all they're, instead of being annoyed by me asking how'd the finish go, they thought they would just put my life in danger and knock me the fuck out.
So I'm getting sick of this. I drop a couple of Valium in his beer. Like, "It would be great. Drink this up." And as he's drinking it before, because how'd the finish go? I'm like, "Holy fuck, man! One of these things is gonna kick in."
So when was the where were we the next night?
Cocaine.
Yeah, was I on the bill?
Yeah.
Of course. I'm not Sidney fucking Crosby. Remember when we were in Newfoundland? I got this concussion in an earlier match, and I was supposed to run in his match at the end of the night. So I was in rough shape. My vision was blurry. Then it went double, and I thought, "Oh, this is tricky." Because if I'm doing a run-in, which ring do you go to, the left one or the right one? Ooh. Then my vision went triple. So I thought, well, there's nothing to this. Just go to the middle ring.
I made it easier. Yeah, it was me, you, Kurrgan, and it was me and you versus Kurrgan and Dylan Davis, I think it was.
I can't remember what gave me the concussion, but I remember Dan.
The boards.
Yeah, the board came up and hit me in the back. But Dan Bjorkdahl, the dickhead promoter, he was saying he was kind of jokingly saying, "I would stop complaining. It's just a bang in the head, ha ha ha." Like, fuck you, you little Barney Rubble looking motherfucker. The next night he got a concussion, took the rest of the tour off.
Yeah.
And let me put this out there and be very clear. I believe that when you get a concussion, you should take as much time off as necessary. Yeah. And if I was to get a concussion now, I wouldn't get back in the ring until I felt it. But in those days, and
we're all stupid.
Well, and you're making a living, and there wasn't as much known about concussions. This was long before the WWE guy, the guy.
Whiskey?
Yeah. It was before he did all the research, and it was before the movie with Will Smith and all that. In any sport, you get your bell rung. Suck it up, kid. Get out there. You're on the next shift.
So we did in our time.
Yeah.
In hindsight, though, it probably wasn't the smartest idea, but we did it then.
I'm going to pay for it the rest of my life. I've had many major concussions, and
I have post-concussion syndrome, right? So there's I do have to get like treatment all the time, right? But you know, I can't go reverse it, so it is what it is, right?
My next question here is, how did real action wrestling come about? You alluded earlier, Scott Gallant started it. Did you have much to do with that, Mike or Pete?
Well,
I had nothing to do with it.
what happened originally, I was supposed to go. Phyllis Lee, God rest her soul, one of the greatest women in wrestling, the first lady of wrestling, the first lady of mixed martial arts, started UFC, the original one, before it was sold to, Dan Severn's agent. Incredible woman, I can't say enough about her. She was like the grandmother of pro wrestlers and MMA fighters. But she had me booked to go work for Carlos Colon in Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest, I was nervous as shit about going. I think you had already went at the time and didn't like it.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't crazy about it. And then Scott Gallant had told me that he wanted to start running wrestling. And he wanted to run the winter months because Emile was running in the summer. So he asked me if I would be a full partner with him. And all that I would have to contribute in was to get the guys, book the talent, such and such, but I would be a full profit partner with him. He would finance the thing. But sure, there's guarantee of money that, you know, like I said, I think it was $750 or whatever it was, coming off of $350 with a meal. So I said, yeah, I'm in. You know, sounds good to me. And I remember Pete had just got back from Calgary, I think, before that work. So he'd put me in. I think you got a hold of Aiden Pringle, Sin, Todd the Bod Douglas, and some of those guys from Calgary. So I brought those guys in. Lawrence Pereira, Custom Made Man, Jamie Jackson, Otto Bond, Chris Tidwell. And I don't know how the Toronto connection was made at all. I'll be honest with you, I don't remember at all.
Tommy Twilight?
Yeah, Tommy Twilight.
Sure.
And
Alexander the Great.
Magnus, Alexander the Great, and Lawrence Pereira.
Good crew. Well, good looking crew.
Great,
Not a great working
crew.
crew.
No.
A good looking crew.
So then we had booked a 2-week tour, and we put on some good shows, man. Like some really good shows. Yeah. But it didn't make money. It lost money. And I want to say that it went in debt $10,000, something like that, in 2 weeks. And then we had the website though, and up front it looked like it was very successful, the way the pictures were taken. Internet was just starting to, like, message boards and everything. Kathy Yetman had done a lot of work promoting good pictures of crowds and stuff like that. Then all of a sudden we got a call from New Age Entertainment that said they wanted to buy it. But part of the deal was the ring had to go, and Peter and I had started a wrestling school, and that's what paid for the ring. And the deal was we sold the ring with the name and with the website and all that. And Pete and I said the deal is that Peter and I had to be guaranteed work, we had to be guaranteed this much money and stuff like that, and the ring went with it. So called Pete, we made the deal because it was our ring at the time.
We were the happiest motherfuckers on earth.
Yeah, because I think we started at $1,100 a week at the time, and then it would drop down after that to bring Kurrgan in.
And creative control.
You had Kurrgan in it.
Creative control, yeah.
We had Robert in for the first tour.
The first tour with Real Action Wrestling we did, but when New Age Entertainment came on board, he wasn't with it originally.
True. That's true.
So the first couple of months, I think we were on $1,100 a week, and then I think they said in order to bring Robert in, they had to drop us down to $750, $800, something like that. I can't even remember what it was. So that we kind of gave up parts of our salary to have that, but we thought it was a better business decision because we thought it would draw more and keep us going longer. Whatever it was like that, so we thought. Yeah.
Unfortunately, shortly after Robert's heel turn, when business was really booming, his father died, and Robert, I'll never forget. I was sitting there when
smash the table,
and he went like this on the kitchen table. God damn! And the table shattered.
Yeah.
And that was the host in Pepperell, and Robert had to borrow the rental.
He took
Flesh's car.
Yeah.
Drove back home and never came back. He had to stay home for his family. So that had a big impact. I mean, business didn't drop. but it didn't continue to go. The trajectory. Is that the word?
Yes.
Trajectory.
Say that 4 times.
Yeah. It was, we were shooting for the stars. I mean, the reliable giant had turned heel. He choked somebody, ran through a table. That was one of
We
the
just got a
hottest.
TV deal.
Yeah, it was one of the most one of the hottest moments that I've been involved in wrestling. And I think Kurrgan did one more Halifax appearance. He did one heel match and maybe 2, and that was it.
Yeah.
So we didn't really get to capitalize on that. Then Bobby Bass came in, and when the minute Bobby Bass showed up, the ship started to sink because there was dissension in the ranks, and we all went with him. And we, like I discussed, we shouldn't have, but we did.
Yeah.
Chasing a quick buck instead of being sensible businessmen.
Yeah. Bobby Bass was a cancer to wrestling.
And there hasn't been full-time wrestling since. Well, that's not true. I think Emile ran a few summers after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe only a month here and a month
Yeah,
there.
not
Certainly
for
wasn't
6
like it
weeks.
was
Not
before.
like the day, not like back in the day, May to September.
Yeah, oh God, nothing like that. Memories working with Robert. You both had lots of matches with him.
I remember working him in Charlottetown, and he thought Ric Flair's chopping was getting over, so he went to chop me, and he chopped me in the side of the head. He chopped me in the face. I had purple welts all over. And I remember he chopped me so hard in the chest. My mother, who's a nurse, was actually worried he was going to stop my heart, and she came and she was concerned with me. And he used to give me this teddy bear slam. And Robert is like, his sternum sticks out like if you took 6 inches off a broom handle and just like a dorsal fin, like it stuck out, and it would like crush me. Robert is the
He
nicest.
didn't know his stone strength.
No.
And in the gym, he can't lift anything, but he's just freakishly strong as a man, you know. Greatest guy in the world.
He's
And,
the nicest guy. He's one of my best friends in wrestling. I bring him over here as often as I can. I bring him over for celebrity golf tournaments. Spending time with Robert is amazing. He's an awesome guy. But at the time, he was a better worker when he came back for
Newfoundland.
For Newfoundland.
Goddamn right.
He was an incredible worker.
But
when
you
he
know
came
what?
back.
He was way better than people ever give him credit for.
Yeah, he could have been. I think Vince McMahon used him properly.
He could have been a big star.
He could have been the most devastating heel. His appearance alone, people are terrified.
His intensity is terrifying, even when you're on his side.
Yeah.
When you're a heel working with Robert, his intensity is to the point where you're actually buying into it, thinking, "Holy fuck, this guy could go off at any minute and kill us all."
He locked up with
Drool dripping and screaming and yelling. His voice is so booming. It's like an Andre voice, you know, just that loud, you know, goes through every corner of the arena.
I remember in Halifax, I locked up with him the first time. Then we were going to do a push-off where he throws me. And I said the first one, he's throwing me to the corner, like towards the ropes. And he threw me, my knees caught the top rope. I nearly went into like the first row. And like when you have a guy with that kind of power that grabs on you, you can feel their power. There's very few, a lot of strong people that I know in the world, like, and have been in the ring with, like world-class strong people. But Robert has this, like he said, not in the gym so much, but when he grabs on it, you can feel that power. Those giant hands. He's got 28-inch biceps. I remember we measured them one time with real action wrestling.
The only him and Callie are the two guys I've locked up with where you realize this guy's fucking strong.
Yeah.
And I've wrestled huge guys all over the world, but something about being a legit giant. You know?
Yeah.
Well, Pete, were you wrestling him in Monarchy once and the ring broke?
I don't know.
You don't remember?
With the board when we were sitting
Was
in the
that
canvas.
Montague? Yeah, I remember the match, but I didn't know the town. Yeah, I think he chokeslammed me into the hammock.
It was a side slam that broke the boards.
Actually, we had a match one time in Concussion where we broke the 2 top ropes went. So that was the first spot of the match. So me and Kurrgan are not the 2 guys that want to go in and have a grappling match. So we're not
Blue Fez.
Gosh and Fez, you know. So it wasn't much of a match after that. I loosened one of his teeth and split his lip open. He was fucking mad about that. I called Big Boot and he never heard me, and like boot right in the mouth. Blood, you fucker.
I worked Robert actually one night in North Sydney, and the top rope broke. And when it broke, the cable broke. It went across the top of everybody's heads. It could have decapitated the whole first row. And then Robert and I had to work in there, and he shot me off. There's only the second rope there. So I had to like pull a Rey Mysterio and like drop off and just use the second rope and come back. And then Billy, God rest his soul, the ring crew guy, went and he took the bottom rope and moved it up to the top rope while we were working, took a rest hold or whatever, and he came up and put it around the top. We managed to finish the match, I think, with just the top rope and the second rope at the end of it. So yeah.
You guys may have answered this. Was there ever any intention on running against Grand Prix?
None.
No.
None at first.
No, totally not.
And have either of you gone back?
He had fired both of us before Real Action Wrestling started that summer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because he didn't use us for the summer of 2000. We were almost out of wrestling.
Yeah.
Well, was that because you did Real Action in the fall of '99?
It was.
In the fall of 99, yes.
Correct.
So, no, there was no intention of ever running head-to-head in the summer months, but when we got the call and Warren and Brian bought Real Action Wrestling from Scott and Mike, then we were happy to go head to head, and that battle lasted.
We thrived on it.
I believe that battle lasted all of 12 days.
Yeah.
And we actually, the house on Pemperell, Emile's partner,
That's right,
Zink,
yeah.
had leased it.
Yeah.
He was stuck with the lease.
To house
for a
his
year.
wrestlers.
Yeah.
Who ended up, we were told,
Flash.
we were told here's the guys you get to pick from out of all the. We said we'll use this Flash guy.
Yeah.
Now, would you have ever gone back to work for him?
Probably. We're both wrestlers.
totally.
You go to where the money is.
I don't say there's never. I never say never. None of us ever say never. There's nobody I wouldn't work for.
Now,
There's a price for everything.
I have this question down. If Emile were to walk in right now, what would you say to him?
Thank him.
Get up and give him a handshake and a hug, and we would probably sit down and have a great night.
Yeah.
I guess you already talked about a lot of the other Kurrgan family members. Ron, you spoke of. Any members of Ron?
At the end of it, I tried to kill Ron, actually. I remember the last night he was being a dick and yelling at me and stuff, and I was up on the top, and there used to be a half-ton truck with a rack on the top, and I actually threw the beam off the top at Ron.
Yeah, Ron was difficult, but when you think back, he was a man in his probably late 60s on the crew, on the road with a bunch of young party animals, and
we were nuisance.
He was a cranky man, but he wasn't happy. I mean, I wouldn't have been happy. It was late 60s doing what he was doing, so I try not to judge him too harshly. I think Ron had a good heart, and we had a lot of good times with Ron. We had a lot of good laughs. He told us a lot of stories, and we had some nice road trips.
Yeah, it was just a matter of that we were all, at the end of the year, we were all tired and sore, and we were like, I don't know, it was in a point where, and me as a young guy that was always getting shit on by him, and I was a man at the time, right? Like, I was 23 years old, and a guy that never let anybody like pick at me, but I shut my mouth for the whole time because I wanted to be in the business. Then at the end of it, I was just like fed up. You know what I mean? And so I can't, my last memories of Ron were bad ones, but I had a lot of good memories with Ron, right? I had a lot of good memories, yeah.
Was Jeff around a lot then, when you guys were around?
Never seen Jeff hardly at all myself. I only
the
knew
year
Jeff
before, I started the year before Mike that year. He was our ref every night.
I hardly ever
Jeff
seen
was great actually on the road. He was a good laugh. He'd always come out and party with us, and he would always sign. People would come up to us in the bars for autographs, and he would always just sign the ref.
Now, perhaps the only one else to rival your international work in this territory was Rene Dupree. Thoughts on Rene and how his career turned out? And was he capable of more?
Oh, totally capable of more. I think probably on paper he should have been one of the biggest stars ever in the business.
In ring, you can't deny Rene's talent. It was Rene's personality that probably took his career down.
Great look, great athletic ability.
Yeah,
I have had my problems with Rene, but this summer I did a show with him in England, and we shook hands and as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I don't know what he thinks. You know, I can't control what he thinks, but as far as I'm concerned, but I mean, and it's a lot to forgive, but it's water under the bridge. You know, I just don't. I hate having heat with anybody. You know, and it happens in the business like any other business. But you know how I'll say exactly here what I said to Rene that day in Norwich, England. I said, Rene, we're from the same town. Let's not hate each other. We don't have to like each other, but let's not hate each other. You know, and probably if we were on the same page, we could help each other down the road. You know, I said, you know, I believe that people from the same area should support each other. He reluctantly kind of looked up and shook my hand. I mean, I don't know if it sank in. I hope that it did. You know, life's too short to hold grudges, and you know, as I get older, I think more about that type of stuff. You know, you get a little petty. You know, and what our big blowout wasn't a petty thing. It was a very major thing, But he was drunk. He was on something. You know, and in no shape to be making proper decisions. He said some things he really shouldn't have said, and but I'm willing to get past it if he is, you know. And if Rene walked in here right now, I'd shake his hand, or I'd go outside and fight him. I don't care, you know. It doesn't matter to me. I'd rather get along.
I haven't seen or talked to Rene in years. Some messages when I would say he was under the influence on Facebook or whatever. But when Rene was breaking into the business the first year, I was like his big brother.
He's great. He was a great kid.
Great kid. Yeah. I was like his big brother. He came to me for like guidance on certain things and that. And then I think he just hated me because of the whole real action thing, right? I don't know, but I heard secondhand that Paula was bitter at me for starting that. Rene just kind of accepted that. But Rene and I have never actually had face-to-face a harsh word towards each other. You hear everything, but you believe half, maybe not even of that when you hear it from secondhand from other wrestlers. Right?
People just, instead of jumping to conclusions, and this isn't about Rene, it's about people in business, or in general in the business. You know, instead of judging somebody for a decision they make, you know, try to put yourself, try to look at it from maybe a higher altitude and realize that if somebody's starting a promotion or working somewhere, they're not trying to hurt you. They're trying to earn a living. You know, they're doing what they have to do. So us working for a real action, I wasn't trying to hurt anybody. I was trying to put food on my family's table. You know, and that's, and the same as, you know, you just got to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. That, you know, don't just assume evil doing. It's not us versus them. It's everybody's just trying to succeed in a business where, unfortunately, not many people get to succeed.
And the thing is with wrestling, you have a lot of alpha males. Well, maybe not a lot anymore, but there used to be a lot of alpha males. and you know, a lot of personalities. And you know what, myself working in the mental health field, I'd say there's a lot of borderline personality disorders in wrestling. And so the combination of all those things, you see a lot of conflicts that are amplified and over accentuated, and I think that in people like drama in wrestling, so I think that's a big part of it too as well. So, but yeah, back to your whole thing. The Kurrgan family has been, for the most part, nothing but good to me. I can't say enough good things about Emile. Paula was a sweetheart to me. She did more things for me than ever. Never had a problem with Jeff. You know, for the most part, if you took down the timeline, Rene and I got along great with a few keyboard disputes. But other than that, yeah, the Kurrgan family has been really good to me.
I agree.
Excellent. Now, when you guys opened the Real Action Wrestling Training School, and I'm thinking you had...
Did you ever have that call, or was it Cardinal Sinners Wrestling School?
No, it was Real Action Wrestling, because that was
at
in
the one in
Halifax.
Sackville.
Yeah.
Because you had about 2 years experience. You had about one. Thinking back 20 years.
No. That was 2000.
2001?
That was 2002.
Oh, you
So,
trained Duke before that.
Yeah, but then
Oh,
that,
was
that wasn't real action wrestling. That
It
was
was
just
Cardinal
everything.
Sinners.
So yeah.
Oh, okay, I apologize.
Then that was 2001. So yeah, I had 3 years and he had 2 years.
So I'm thinking back 20 years.
Not right. We shouldn't have.
What the hell were you thinking?
Trying to make money.
Okay.
Totally about money. And I'll
No.
tell you what, when Duke Mackay, I was working for a short time in a meatpacking place. And Duke comes over, he goes, "You're Hercules." And I said, "Yeah." "What are you doing here? You're not wrestling?" I said, we don't wrestle in the summer. Actually, this was 2000 when Emile had fired us. So I said, "I just came back from Puerto Rico. I had a bad experience. I'm done wrestling." "Oh, geez, I'd love to get trained. I'd love to give it a try." So then I called Mike and we got talking like,
Maybe a few people.
yeah. Because we had him and a guy named Ray Brown that was in and you had Cash Canuck here.
Canuck, yeah.
So we had a few guys. Fuck, look into a venue. You found the venue, so we
Built a ring.
pocketed $5,000.
Yeah.
What, should you have been training?
No,
No.
but
Did a good job.
In
You know,
fairness,
yeah.
they came out good pros.
Corporal Chaos too.
Yeah,
Okay,
Josh
yeah.
Williams.
Yeah, they all came out credit. I mean, Duke became great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cash
no,
Canuck
no.
was a good worker.
By numbers, no, we shouldn't have been training, but we got through it.
No, you're right. The proof.
Yeah.
Proof in the pudding, yeah.
Absolutely. Let's see.
Marco Estrada came out of that. It was fantastic.
Well, that was
Later,
way
but-
later.
It was
though.
later.
That was 3 or 4 years later.
So how did the sale come from Real Action to New Age Entertainment? How did that come about?
It was.
Didn't you just tell that story?
I think you pretty much did. How did they contact you?
You weren't paying attention, Sean?
Come on,
Nasty.
John.
That was nasty,
Stick with
man.
the program.
It's
They saw pictures on the internet from Kathy Yetman. They were impressed, and
Bought the internet name. And, come on, stick with the program.
it's 3 o'clock in the morning. It's past my bedtime. What was the vibe when these new owners bought the company going in?
We thought they had a lot of money, which they said they did, and
until he invited us down to his house to review the year, and we showed up, and he lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. And we thought, well, he doesn't have a lot of money, but he must have investors, and
which he told us he did.
Yeah, and we everything he said he was going to do, he did.
Yeah.
He paid us. We sat down. He goes, let's put together a schedule. He says, what are good towns? And I remember us putting together the
loop.
Yeah, the loop, and I said, well, I remember us saying we got to do things bi-weekly, not weekly. So we'll have 4 shows that we do bi-weekly, and then all the other dates we'll fill in.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember him asking, like, what are good towns to do as a fill-in? And I remember saying,
Can't fill instead of Berwick.
but that was a regular. That was a regular town. But I remember saying for the Yarmouth, we had got to go to Yarmouth once a month, Campbellton, or Dalhousie, Dingwall or Bathurst or whatever it was, Miramichi. So we filled it Sherbrooke, Lunenburg. Lunenburg ended up being, we drew so well in Lunenburg, we turned it into a bi-weekly. It was only supposed to be a one-off, but we drew well and we kept drawing well. So yeah, it's we felt like, I remember us driving down to meet him and driving back, even though we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. Us feeling like we'd won the lottery. We're on to something here, boy. And he told us, if you guys get WWE tryouts or anything, I'll fly you in. 6 months later, I had a WWE tryout. He didn't fly me in.
To the Eastlink TV pilot for Exhibition Park, 2001. That was the first time we had TV in this territory in about 10 years. Here's another question: did Pettipa have TV when he took over after?
Yes.
Was it
I
on?
wouldn't know.
Was it on ATV or?
I
ASN?
think it was just local cable,
Okay.
but I'm not sure. I remember seeing it.
Okay.
No, it must have been ATV.
Well.
Yeah, it must have been. It must have been, because I wouldn't have got local cable. I was living in Halifax then.
Okay. Well, all right. So this would be the first time we're on TV since then.
Yeah.
What was the thought on that TV pilot?
We thought well, I'll be honest with you. I remember somebody saying we're going to rival ECW. Because I remember that for some reason that quote, it was in the after what Peter said earlier, we'd sit in the boardroom afterwards and that, but the production was great. They had us standing on these things that made us spin around, and they took the graphics. We just stood on them and they rotate it, and they did all the digital.
I was concerned about the cost.
I didn't know about the cost until later, the day after.
I had heard about the cost, and I was weary. I thought we're never going to make that revenue back.
Yeah,
but maybe if they can survive and get past it, then it can be a good tool, and the library will be worth something down the road. But it was crazy. Like, it was $30,000 up front. Production cost.
And it was just the one show that was done that season.
Yeah.
And it was quite a show. Bobby Bass got brought in. How did he come aboard?
I can't remember.
I think he just said he was going to throw money in, and at the time that he came in,
But how did he know about it?
Somebody must have contacted him.
I think he was down on vacation, and Buddy Lane actually got a hold of him.
This makes sense.
Any other questions?
Well, okay, I was just going to wait till the big guy came back, but
You can hear it, the pissing noise in the background.
let's see. In the fall, you had two shows, and two big ones to end the show and the season. Excuse me. There was the WrestleFest Super Show that was kind of a letdown. You were supposed to have several legends from the past that no-showed, like the Beast, Paul Peller, Todd McPhee. They all no-showed. The legends ended up being Pettipaw, Buddy Lane, who'd been around, and the UFO. Thoughts on that show?
I don't remember the UFO. Who was the UFO? Oh,
Bruce Martin.
Bruce Martin, Sneaky Martin.
Hey, don't forget. Sailor White was there.
That's right.
Was he?
Sailor Hubert was there.
That's right.
Greatest guy.
Yeah.
Hubert Gallant was there. That's right.
Sailor just showed up, did he not?
Sailor was there. That's right. And I remember him telling me about his diabetes.
Yeah, he just walked in. He hung out back. He was a great guy.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. See, concussions, right? It gets back to that. I don't remember a lot of that stuff.
Now, I remember that night. It was the first time Pettipaw was in the ring in a long time, and he cuts a promo on Kingman. Yeah. Was there ever any serious plans of you guys having a run?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because I know I marked out for that.
Pettipaw had watched my match that night with Nick and Sin Bodie.
Yeah.
And Pettipaw immediately sent somebody down to say, I can draw money with that guy. Mm-hmm. And I agreed. I said, fucking right, we can draw some money. And I can't remember why it just never, I can't really remember why it never came off. He worked Duke one night.
Yeah. He worked Corporal Chaos.
Did he work Corporal Chaos?
Josh rubbernecked him and broke his ankle.
Yeah, that was the match.
Yeah.
At the show I was referring to.
I thought he worked Duke.
Well, no, he worked Duke the next show. That was the show that you worked Ruby.
Yeah, and him and I did a stare-off.
Yeah.
I came into the ring and we did a stare-off, and I can't remember why it never paid off.
Because I was calling the match, and I was like, my goodness, this is huge.
Yeah.
I think there was some health issues on Pettipaw's part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe. I really don't remember. But I would have loved to have done it. I think we would have. We could have drew some money in there.
Would have been awesome.
I remember Pettipaw went in against Josh Williams that night. And he threw a standing drop kick at 300 and some pounds, and like almost went over his head.
Yeah,
like it was, it was.
He's an impressive athlete.
Oh, yeah,
unbelievable. Now the last show of the year was the cage match between you and Bobby Roode. Yeah. Mike, memories of that one?
Well, funny enough, I just
talked about it all day.
I just did an interview and asked me what my first cage match was, and I completely forgot in the interview that it was Bobby Roode. I said it was with Grimes in Halifax, which was probably my 10th. But I've watched it over the last bit, and for two guys that were green as goose shit at the time, that match, I'll put it up against most anytime. The two of us went that night.
Yeah.
Like, you go back and watch the pace of that match. That was pedal to the metal.
It's a different type of green than green now. Yeah. You were a couple of years into your career, but you were 500 matches deep.
Yeah. True enough.
That's the difference.
It's not green by today's standards.
Now guys take 10 years, well, 20 years. They don't get 500 matches.
But like, the two of us went, so hard that night. It was one of the most rewarding experiences. I remember me and Bobby up back. I have pictures of it, two of us bloody and covered, and I wish now, looking back what I know now, the things I could have added to made it better, but I'll throw that match up against most cage matches, right? And the crowd reaction.
I was putting it over earlier today to the guys. It was unfortunately, things had already started to go south with real action wrestling at that point.
I was going to ask you.
So
what was
their
the feel
advertising
afterwards?
budget was way down. So that cage match should have packed the Forum. It didn't. There was maybe 300 or 400 people. Should have been 1,000.
Yeah. But it was.
But we lost the momentum with Kurrgan. Just for the fans didn't know his father died. They thought he just walked out.
Yeah.
So and we changed from the exhibition park, which was drawn really well, back to the Forum. And the Forum wasn't the Forum now is kind of the Halifax Forum Multi-Purpose Center now is kind of thought of as the traditional wrestling place of wrestling, of Maritime Wrestling in Halifax. But then it was still kind of a new venue. Emile had run it in '99, and then it was untouched until 2001. And so we were only like maybe that was your cage match might have been the 8th show in that area. So it wasn't a tried and tested venue yet, and it was so expensive to run to this day. It's a very expensive venue. So I would say that cage match might have broke even.
Yeah.
Where it should have been 1,000 people and a huge profit, but they didn't have the money to advertise then. Our posters had gone from brilliant posters to little fucking photocopy things where pictures were blurry.
We were in the paper having ads half a page in the Daily News to nothing, right? So it was.
You could see the writing on the wall, which is why when Bobby Bass contacted us, it made our decision a little, because Bobby Bass had access to the finances too. So whether he was telling us the truth or not, he led us to believe, or outright told us, they have no money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
if you stay with them, they're not going to last. And they almost did. They lasted almost as long as he did, but.
And we had a few checks bounced at the end of that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we had every reason to believe that things were unstable financially. So, we did what we thought we had to do.
Was Buddy Lane part of an owner for that ACW promotion?
Because
he's the one who contacted me first.
Not an owner, but I think
the office.
Yeah, he was the office. He was the.
Buddy had never.
He was in charge of advertising, which meant Buddy got an advertising budget put into his bank account, and he spent a small percentage of it on advertising and ate like a king.
So, Mike, did you go ACW at the start too?
I did.
Okay, and you obviously did.
Me, him, and Bobby.
Okay. And what did running head to head do to the territory?
Oversaturated.
Killed us.
Yeah,
it killed it. Obviously, it's dead now.
I know. Just want to hear what you'd say.
Yeah.
Now, your thoughts on Bass 20 years later?
I can't stand the guy.
So if he walked into the room, it probably wouldn't be very.
He wouldn't be allowed in this room.
Yeah.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah.
And the fact that wrestlers and people that know that he fucked everybody for money, they go to this fucking Cauliflower Alley Mark Club and get pictures. Our friends. Our
That got
friends
fucked
and
money
guys
out of
that got fucked by him.
Yeah. That he owes $1,000.
Standing there taking pictures with him. I'm with Bobby Bass. Hashtag Bobby, no clash Bobby. Fuck no clash Bobby Bass. He fucked us.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Bobby Bass.
Yeah, I went out and I took my bumps. We had an agreement. I go out and I work matches. I take bumps. You pay me.
Yeah.
And I did my part. You didn't do yours, right? You know what? I, as a promoter, and he tried to say this to me one time. Well, you should know what it's like. If I book somebody and I promote it, if I took the loss because I didn't promote and I didn't do well, you still get paid. I've paid everybody. I've paid everybody. I get hotel
and
rooms.
he gets defensive about it.
Yeah.
I don't owe anybody anything. Well, we did the work.
Yeah.
You didn't pay us.
Yeah.
That was the arrangement.
I take pride as a promoter of getting guys good hotel rooms, of buying guys food, buying drinks afterwards. I don't need to do that, but I take pride in that as a promoter because I know how I wanted to be treated, and I know good promoters who treated me that way, and I want to reciprocate that, right? But somebody that shakes your hand, if I shake your hand and I make a deal, if I made a bad deal and I take the loss on it, then that's because I made a stupid decision, made a bad deal, but I'm still going to honor it. And Bobby Bass feels that, well, it's best for me that I didn't. Well, you made the bad deal.
He left in the middle of it.
It's not going to fake the heart attack.
I had turned babyface in Moncton, and me and Mike set up an angle in Moncton, and Moncton hadn't drawn,
We're running in a farmer's market. If it was nice, we'd do it outside. If it wasn't, we'd do it inside. And we were getting 75 people, 100 people. All of a sudden, I turn babyface, and me and Mike have a little face-off, and you crush my head in with a chair one night. I get color, and we come back the next week to do, or the next, or 2 weeks later or whatever. We'd done Woodstock the night before. When the guys had all told, we had a great big house and Woodstock was packed. So we thought, well, we're going to get paid now. Finally, he never paid. He paid us a little bit, but he still owed us a lot. So we thought, well, if Moncton draws tomorrow night, we'll do good. We'll get caught up or close to it. 500 people showed up in Moncton.
Yeah.
No ring, no Bobby Bash, just a crew of wrestlers waiting, telling the fans, we did what we were supposed to do. He was panicking. What do? Well, what we do is one of us turns babyface. It was me.
Yeah.
It was my hometown. 500 people showed up and went away with, and that was there was no such thing as an advance ticket then. No such thing.
Yeah.
It was all whatever showed up to the city. You never knew.
Yeah.
You're going to get 0 people or 1,000 people. You just don't know.
Yeah.
There's honestly no such thing as an advance ticket anywhere.
No.
People just showed up and paid at the door. So 500 people get turned away that night.
Unbelievable.
While Bobby Bash was driving back to Ontario.
What was funny was the night we worked there, and Bruce Martin, he got to fake the heart attack so he'd get
That was in Campbellton.
Yeah, and he it was like Sanford and Sons.
Yeah.
Clutched his heart. Oh, Elizabeth! And then he got Bobby Bass to rush into the hospital too. Nobody was having anything. They just took off and left all the boys with no money or whatever.
Did you ever hear the story when Red Fox actually died? He was partying. It was the middle of the afternoon. He was whatever he was, 75 or 80 years old. They were doing lines of coke and partying one afternoon, and all of a sudden he starts taking a heart attack. So he stands up in the middle of the room off the couch. He's like this, and all the guys that he was partying with thought that he was doing the skit from Sanford. So they're laughing their heads off as he died. He hits the deck, and they're like, "Yeah, it was a good one, Red." His name was Red Fox. All right, get up now. Oh, fuck. Red? He's dead.
Now, that summer, there was a lot of back and forth. I know you went back to Real Action, but you didn't go back, did you?
They didn't want me back.
They didn't want you back.
They blamed me for, I wasn't welcome back. They blamed me for orchestrating the whole thing. It was Peter used his persuasive skills and talked everyone into leaving, which wasn't true, but that's how... Sometimes because I was the older guy of the group, and I guess considered the leader. They just perceive you that way. But I didn't persuade anyone. I made up my mind. We all discussed it. We're best friends. Yeah. What are you going to do? I'm going to go. I'm going to go where there's more money. Me too. And the only guys that didn't jump were the guys that weren't offered more money.
And the only reason I went back is because Bobby Bass rode my ass. What was happening was there was a lot of people that were saying Cowboy Cut's a good promo, Cowboy's good in the ring, and Bobby Bass hated that. He just
because he wanted to be the star of the show.
He wanted to be the star of the show.
He wanted to cut our promos for us.
And I was at the time, I was like banter with the crowd, witty one-liners back and forth, and he'd hear people, instead of being a promoter saying these people are getting into this guy, he resented it. He's like, "Oh, I was way better than that guy was. You should have seen me in my prime and going on like this."
Yeah, how about let's try to make some fucking money, you dickhead.
Yeah, and he'd be going on, well, he just does the same match all the time. He just says the same one-liners every night. And I'd be like, who cares? It's working. But he just keep riding my ass the whole time. And at the end of it, I was like, fuck you. And I remember me, you, Bates, and Flesh were in Flesh's apartment right beside the tower when they called me.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and
I remember like it was yesterday. I was devastated, but I knew you were going to do it. And you did what you thought was best at the time.
And I was just so fed up with Bass. It had nothing to do with anything. And he called Bobby, and then he called me. And I remember we're sitting on the couch, and he was mad about it, and I
wasn't mad.
Not mad. I said you were disappointed.
Yeah.
Disappointed. And I was tired of Bobby Bass, and I didn't know what was going on. And I remember the two of us, I said, "I love you, brother." And he said, "I love you too, man." He's like, and that was it. I think we both went to bed after that, slept there that night. And then I went back with Bass. Me and Bobby went and showed up in Halifax the next night.
But when you guys shut down, when Real Action Wrestling shut down, I told Bobby, I said, well, we got to get Mike and Bobby Bass. I said, we got to get Mike and Bobby Roode back. I mean, we can get this fucking ship back steering properly. So I said, and also Duke and Gary.
Yeah.
So he brought back Mike, Duke, and Gary, but he wouldn't bring back Bobby Roode. I said, what you don't understand, Bass, is Bobby Roode is the best of the fucking bunch. Oh, he's not better than Leo Burke. Leo Burke is 60 years old. You know, I would love to have a 30-year-old Leo Burke, but that's not available to us. So how about a 23-year-old Bobby Roode, who's the best worker in the country? No, don't need him.
He's not that good.
So Bobby went home. No, Bobby stayed and he got a job at a bar in Halifax, bouncing for a little while, and then because him and his wife had just split up.
They're on
So he
Walnut Drive.
Yeah,
Walnut Drive.
He stayed for a little while and worked the door, and we traveled up and down the roads for another month, and then Bash fucked us and went home.
Now, around this time, a guy named Devin Chittick started a company called Mainstream Wrestling. The roster and production was far below Real Action and Grand Prix before it, yet it was Mainstream that remained in business and toured for 10 plus years. What are your thoughts on that and why that happened?
Because he never paid anybody any money at the time. And Devin, I have a soft spot for Devin Chittick.
I like Devin too.
He
Likewise.
He loves pro wrestling. He'll do everything possible to try to maintain himself in the business. And I worked a lot of dates for Devin Chittick.
I've only worked a handful, but
I worked 30
as
days.
recently as this year, though.
This
I've worked for him. I did 2 shots for him this year.
I worked
In
30
Halifax,
days in a row with 30 days in a row with Devin Chittick. I went all across Nova Scotia into Newfoundland, up to Labrador and back. That was my first trip to Newfoundland, was with Devin Chittick. And I do.
I said you were tiresome to travel with.
Well, I was. Yeah, I was. Because I would hold Devin accountable. I was Devin's conscience. But Devin and I have had a lot of fun on the road, man. And I'll be honest, at first I hated Devin's guts. When we were in Real Action Wrestling, he started Mainstream.
I didn't like what I considered a backyard organization. Was
I hated him and I hated Steen.
Yeah.
I despised Steen. And I despised Devin Chittick.
To be honest, I don't really remember them. It may be a couple years after they started. I remember being aware of him and not I didn't have any. I wouldn't say I've had any passionate feelings about him, good, bad, or indifferent. I just thought these guys don't belong in pro wrestling. And I think if you look at that product from the time, I was right. And Devin would probably tell you that I'm right. But you know what? I remember you saying something about Devin when you were working for Devin, and I remember asking you, like, what the fuck are you doing working for that guy? You said, Peter, what you and I know about Devin Chittick, he knows about himself.
Yeah.
He's trying to put a small budget show together and make just enough to cover the bills and maybe take a payday for himself. Yeah. And I just thought to myself, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. That's like trying to compare Walmart to a corner store.
Yeah.
Corner store is just trying to make a wage.
Yeah. And you know what? Devin made, when we went to our first tour in Labrador, Devin Chittick made a lot of money in Labrador and Happy Valley Goose Bay. I remember we did $1,500 in each town at $30 a ticket because there was nothing going on up there. And I remember he charged $10, I think, for Polaroids, and he sold 700 with Grimes and 700 with Jazz. So add that up.
But bad product, and all the towns were killed.
But I'm telling you, man, that first time we went through with some of that stuff.
I remember you telling me. You know, it sounded like the problem. You spent a lot of time in Newfoundland.
Ooh.
I was only there a handful of times.
I did 4 years in Newfoundland. I'd do a week every month, or every 5 weeks. So I'd do a month, and then we'd run a week, and then 4 weeks off. I'd go back and run a week. I did that for 4 years, and that was another thing. Brought wrestling back to TV with NTV and brought it back over there. But that was after Devin Chittick. That was with LCW. But I loved wrestling in Newfoundland, man. I had a lot of good times over in Newfoundland.
Now, Mike, after the fall of ACW and RAW, you started promoting again under the name UCW. How'd that come about?
it was funny. Scott Gallant and I just decided. I remember we had I'd come up with the name Ultimate Championship Wrestling, and we just ran a one-off show in Cornwall.
It was a playoff UFC.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you guys were trying to capitalize on the new popularity of UFC that was just starting to get big.
Yeah, and we ran a show in Cornwall,
Yeah.
and it was me and Pete and Duke, Trash Canyon,
Steen was there.
Steen, Marco Estrada's first match.
Yeah.
Steen suplexed Rick Doyle onto his head,
Yeah, knocked
and
him
Rick
out.
Doyle pissed himself
Yeah.
in the ring.
Yeah, and
I worked Duke.
Cinder was
true,
on
main
that
event.
I
card.
injured my knee, slam dunking a basketball before and that knee still is the fucked up knee now, so I think that was the start of that
It's all from
injury.
basketball.
Yeah, slam dunking a basketball.
And so that we ran that show that night, and then I went back and ran a tour, a 2-week tour later on, which was probably the most profitable tour that UCW's ever done in the 2 weeks, and all with local talent and the Honky Tonk Man. So yeah,
Oh yes, that would be many years later.
Yeah.
Now, from about 2003 to 2005, there wasn't much going on. I don't think you guys were around very much in the.
I was in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
I was England and then Puerto Rico.
I was in England basically the whole time. 2003, I'd have done maybe 5 tours of Ireland. I was in England for most of the year, or at least part of the year, and I think I made my debut. I made my German debut. I was in Germany a few times that year. Actually, I did my first 10-day tournament in Germany that year. 2004, I made my Japanese debut. Back to Germany, England a lot. In 2005, would have been a whole lot of England, a little bit of Germany. I did Cyprus that year, Russia that year. So those were busy times for me. Those were 250, 300 match years.
I went from England. I was working for Brian Dixon. I remember I was in Plymouth, and he got a call from Bushwhacker Luke and said, "You got any big heels there? I need somebody big." And Brian Dixon took me out in the hallway and took a picture of me. And I don't know how it was sent back then, I'll be honest with you. I honestly don't know.
Might have been email. Maybe Tony Knox or somebody might have emailed it.
It got emailed over, and he said, tell him to start watching Bruiser Brody stuff. And he goes, I want him to site. So I finished up my dates with Dixon. I think I left 2 weeks early because Luke asked if I'd go there. I went from there to Puerto Rico. We had to break because the Olympics were that year, and Telemundo was doing that. And I went over to the German tournament. And I did the German tournament while the Olympics were on.
Where were the Olympics that year?
I have no idea.
Athens, Greece.
So there you go. So then all I knew was I was going home because the Olympics were on, and went to Germany, went back home. I was home for a day. No, I was home for 3 days, just enough to clean my clothes and everything. Went back. I remember there was a 2-year period where I was home for like 3 days. My wife was extremely tired of me by that point. I think she forgot what I looked like at that point. And I went back to Puerto Rico, and then after Puerto Rico, I dislocated my shoulder. Separated my shoulder. I was home for a couple weeks, and then I got a call to go to New Japan. And they said, we need to send you to the dojo. So I went down to the dojo in LA. I was down there for 3 weeks, I believe it was. And then my shoulder was a mess, and I barely was even ready, but I went down there. They took care of me, with shoulder rehabilitation and everything. Trained at the dojo, did the whole routine, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, the whole 9 yards, did that 12 hours a day or whatever. And then they sent me over to the G1. So I went over to the G1 and did my debut at the G1. They brought me back for a 2.5 week tour. Did a 2.5 week tour with New Japan. Yeah. And then Inoki sold to... Actually, they brought in Brock Lesnar, and he gobbled up all the budget. So me and Harry Smith contracts got negated because of that. And that was...
You went to Germany that year too, didn't you?
That was 2004. I think.
That was
in the 2 weeks whenever the Olympics were on. Yeah, we went. It was the Olympics were on that point.
No, the Olympics are in August. and you were in
It was in
Germany in
September. It
October.
was September, October, yeah, something like that.
Because I was in Japan when you were in Germany.
Oh, okay.
And I made the stupidest decision of my life right then, career-wise. I chose a one night tournament in Japan over a 10-day tournament in Germany for way more money in Germany. But I wanted to get my foot in the door in Japan, which ended up not getting my foot in the door, and I didn't return to Japan for like 15 years or something after that, or 13 years, maybe, whatever it was. It was a long time after, so I should have just went to fucking Germany. Maybe would have helped the draw, and maybe would have kept the tournament, helped keep the tournaments going. But whatever. That's not a big regret. But
And that Germany that year was a good year. So Dave Taylor was there, Kendo Kashin, Robbie Brookside, Scott Steiner, Drew McDonald. Some of the best times ever, inside and outside of the ring. Like that was one of the best times. In Germany, it was like classic old school wrestling. I remember working Dave Taylor, and when it came to technical wrestling, Dave Taylor was having me put him in holds, and I didn't even know what the holds were. I just knew he was selling at the time.
Last year's Hanover tournament, they did a Legends night where they brought in Salvatore Baloma, who was have you heard of Salvatore? He was a huge star in Germany. So he had terminal cancer. He came in, he was probably 70, and he came and did a tag match with us, a 6-man tag. Him on the heel side, on my side, and on the other side was another big star in Germany called Franz Schulman. And Schulman had a heart attack. He had heart surgery, so he's got the big zipper down here. Schulman's probably in his mid-60s as well. And they went out and they did spots, and they worked there. And the fucking crowd appreciated those guys so much. James Mason had tears in his eyes because James is such a big German wrestling fan, and he remembers Salvatore Baloma from when he was a kid. Just hearing about him, reading about him in magazines, and for him to be in a ring and to get in there, he was a babyface, to get in and do a little bit of a little small spot with Salvatore. He couldn't believe it. I think Baloma died like 2 weeks after that tournament.
Shortly after, yeah.
And Franz did another show. He was just this year. I did a cage match in Vienna against the Bambi Killer for an affiliated organization. Same guys, basically, different name, different country. And Franz came and he announced that night, boys. He didn't announce to the crowd or anything, but he said, "I think this is it, boys." And went out and had a fucking great match, mid-60s. He's a big star there. And people don't understand how big German wrestling was. CWA then when Otto Wanz was promoting, and they were doing 60-day tournaments every year in Hanover. They were doing 30 in Vienna. I think they were doing 60 in Hamburg, and another 30 in Bremen. So you add up those. I mean,
it's a busy year.
Good money.
And you're not traveling.
No travel.
The same venue every night.
That's
Same
awesome.
venue every night. And we're still doing the same Shoots and Plots venue, but the only difference is when it was long, they would stay in caravans. So every wrestler would have a caravan right there on the site. With a shower, your kitchen and everything. So they would just live. They would live there for 2 months.
It's an incredible village.
Now we travel back and forth. And it's usually our promoter lives 15 minutes out of town. So he gets us hotels out close to his place. He lives in a fucking mansion the size of this whole hotel. So we have parties at his house and stuff. But it's not the same. You feel like you're traveling. You kind of want to stay at the venue and have a few drinks, but you realize I'm gonna have to take a €50 cab back. So you just go back. Luckily, there's a lot of us are old farts on that crew, so.
About 20 years ago in Halifax, I filmed you going through some of my picture binders. I got one here. Go through it and give some reactions.
Cuban assassin.
Are we supposed to just recognize them?
Well, no, just whatever comes to mind. Some of them we've talked about. Some of them.
Cuban was great to me. He was my mentor. He cooked for me. He'd show me 3 things every night that was wrong with my match, and he'd tell me he's only going to teach me
Only
2
3?
things. Well, there's a million things wrong, but he knew that I could only remember 3.
He was a good guy. Leo broke my heart that I picked Leo up at the Sackville Tim Hortons on the way to Halifax for a show a few years ago, and he had no idea who I was. And I spent a lot of time with Leo, but didn't remember me. So I think he might have went. His mind might be slipping a bit.
He has dementia. That's a documented fact.
Sonny Warcloud, don't know him.
Don't know
Anything about him. The Beast, great guy.
Huge influence on me as well. Taught me a few things every night. Had some great stories. I love the Beast, man. He was awesome.
He'd always come off and he'd always come into the dressing room. He him and Leo would always read the newspaper, read the sports page, then put the newspaper on the floor as their doormat and take their shoes off so their bare feet weren't on the floor. There it was on the newspaper. Then he would take his tidy whities off and hang them up on the fucking. And we'd always say, man, we gotta go check to see if there's a fucking skid mark in the tidy whities. There never was. He's the cleanest ass in pro wrestling. Frenchie Martin, another big star.
He was big in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
What's his name? Jeremy Orr was telling me on the way over the first WWE show he ever went to. Frenchie Martin was on the bill.
Yeah, he worked a lot for WWE.
Killer Carl Krupp.
Best promos ever.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not the best ever, but the most memorable for me.
I think he was the biggest money-drawing heel in the Maritimes.
And all over the world, I never knew. In Puerto Rico, he was big. In Japan, he was big. I never understood the
Carolinas, Portland.
Yeah.
Texas.
Mm-hmm. I never understood how far. I thought he was just a regional guy between here and Calgary. But the more I get into the business and understood. Funny story about Krupp. One of the best information when I was in Puerto Rico. They said that so when you walk out of when you come out of the dugout, we used to do like 20,000 people, 30,000 people in a baseball arena, but you would get hit with spark plugs, batteries, limes, piss cups, everything whenever you came out. And they said don't say a word until you get past the baseline, whether it was the third base, the first baseline, or whatever. And they'd say why, and they'd say Killer Carl Krupp. We told him, and he said, nobody tells Krupp how to do his gimmick. So Krupp came out of the dugout, and he did the Hail Hitler gimmick, like the
brick on the top of his head.
He got a brick, broke his jaw on the first day.
Great moment, 12-inch dick.
I can't speak of that, but I know he was a huge draw and a big character.
Again.
Have you met him, Peter?
No, never. He's dead now.
Yeah,
he died a few years ago. Rick Valentine, that's Ricky Terrace.
Kerry Brown.
Is it?
Yeah,
I thought it was Ricky Terrace.
No, Kerry
Ricky
Brown.
Terrace worked as Rick Valentine, didn't he?
I don't know who that is.
Ricky Leatherface.
Oh,
Rick
yeah,
Patterson.
yeah.
Rick Patterson.
Patterson.
Oh.
Yeah. No, that's Kerry Brown.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't
Bulldog
know.
Bob Brown's
His
nephew.
nephew, yeah.
Lives in
No idea who that
Winnipeg.
is. Steve Casey, the big English star.
One of my favorite guys in the
6'4".
Maritimes because he had a different style, British style.
Pettipaw.
Pedophile.
I think we've said enough about
Yeah.
Paul.
That's a spoiler done, Dean.
Mm-hmm.
Rip Rogers. When I went down to Ohio Valley and I spent 2 weeks down there with WWE training camp, I did a camp down there. Rip Rogers, when he heard I was trained by the Cuban Assassin and worked in the Maritimes, he took me under his wing. Me and Rip would sit in his office and tell stories and talk. And Rip was the nicest guy because he knew I had old school mentality, and he but didn't like a lot of the way the new guys were, right? Mm-hmm. And he knew I was old school, and he was trained by the Cuban Assassin.
Yeah.
Look how young Rene Dupre was then. Fucking hell.
How old would you?
14.
He was 14 there.
Wow.
14, 15. Edge.
Yeah. Sexton Hardcastle.
Only spoke to him one day, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah, Joe Legend.
Yeah.
Joe Legend did a lot for me in my career.
I learned a lot from him.
He was the guy that he first put me into the Irish gig that set my whole career off. Cuban Assassins, great guys.
Richie, yeah. Great storyteller.
Yeah. There's Richie again.
Richie one.
Little Louie, he's a
And a
character.
lot of great times with Little Louie. Lot of great times with Little Louie.
Except for he couldn't lay down, so you'd share a hotel room with Little Louie, and his back was always sore, so he never slept. So you'd wake up in the morning, he'd be standing over your fucking hotel, like he'd be about this height probably. So you'd be laying on the bed and you'd open your eyes and he's like this.
8 o'clock.
Staring at your face. What took you so long to get up?
8 o'clock in
I've
the
only
morning.
been sleeping 3 hours, you little prick.
8 o'clock in the morning, you'd be bouncing at the head of your bed going, let's go to the bar, cowboy. Let's go to the bar. Let's go to the bar. I'd be like, Jesus, man.
Mark Hughes.
I saved his life.
Yeah, King Queasy.
King Queasy, he had a jaw infection.
Yeah, his jaw was out like this. And he was an American, so he was gonna die. He had an abscess tooth, and it was out like this. Mm-hmm. And Emile was like, "Well, he's American. I can't.
The midget dies. We'll just get another one.
Yeah. And we've already got little Louie. We just need one more midget. Well, if we'll just get another one." So we brought him to the hospital. Mike gives him his medical card. This is all his information. They read it. No, 6'5". Okay, come on in. I mean, they couldn't let the guy die. So.
I bought him his medication, I think, too. He was making way more money than I was, but I bought him his medication that night.
Well, Mark Hughes in the newspaper.
This is the picture that I sent to Emile Dupre.
Yeah.
That he was the one they decided he was going to train me.
You've never looked like that since?
There's your first promo picture.
Yep, with Ric Flair's fingers on the belt. Signed and everything.
Yes.
Chi-Chi, one of my favorite guys.
Awesome guy.
I don't know what I'd have done early in my career with I remember his first show that he came in 1998 with Churro. He was late. He was a few days late into the tour, maybe a week or two late. And he came in, and I thought, here we go. Fine, here's a baby face I can relate to that can help me. And I remember him telling me the simplest thing that's always stuck with me. He says, you see all these fucking marks? He's talking about the other wrestlers. See all these fucking marks? He says at the end of the show, they're out hanging around with the fans and sharing numbers and getting pictures and stuff like that. He says, never be that guy. He says, don't be dismissive, but always act like you're busy. He says, because if the minute they think that you're their next door neighbor, they'll never come and watch you wrestle.
Buy a ticket.
He says, you always have to be a little bit above them. He said, it sounds prickish. He says, but tell them like you'd love to stand and talk, but you're not. You got to get to the next town. You've got always make them feel like you like them, but you've got something a little more important to do.
Yeah.
And that's how you begin. That's how you're a star.
Yeah. Lawrence, awesome guy. I remember he blew his knee out in Charlottetown, blew out his ACL. He slipped on a fucking cookie sheet and blew his knee out.
I barely remember him. Cowboy. Fucking hell. I can't see those ones.
Let's talk more about me.
I can't see those ones without my glasses on.
They're just some little
Picture,
ones.
it's just that's Grand Prix Wrestling. That's Gary and
Is there promo pictures at the end of that one? I'll see if there's any back there. Oh, I guess that's it. I got another one.
more about me. Let's talk about me some more. Well, look more about me.
Round two.
Aiden.
I like it.
Gemini.
Me and Aiden instantly connected when
Yeah.
we first started working. We worked a week together on that first Real Action tour. Great guy.
There's Tommy Twilight that we mentioned
Yeah.
earlier. I don't think he's wrestled probably since his picture was taken.
I think he had breakdown after that Real Action Wrestling tour and didn't go back since. There's Flash, one of the
yeah.
best guys ever, man. One of the most charismatic guys you'll ever meet.
Todd Douglas, Tid.
Tid, can't say I instantly connected with Tid too. Awesome guy. Still talk to him online. JQ Public, good guy. He's
What the fuck is EWA?
It was James St. Pierre's in Maine.
Oh, right.
JQ Public was, what's the sex doctor's name?
Dr.
Was,
Sue or Sal?
Yeah, Doctor whatever. Yeah, he was the
Cameraman.
Oh, cool.
Kurrgan, I already said enough about Kurrgan.
Yeah.
Custom Made Man, he's a guy I connected with instantly
guy.
too. Great guy.
Yeah, us.
It's the first Cardinal Sinner.
First Cardinal Sinners promo pick, two handsome men.
Jesus Christ, neither of us are looking too handsome there, to be fair.
Brian could barely recognize you. I think he might have fallen asleep. Oh, he's still awake.
Duke Mackay.
Duke.
one of our
Duke.
one of our best students in ring. Yeah, great guy.
You gotta wait for Pete for a couple of those.
Who is that?
That's Ray Brown.
Downtown Ray Brown, one of our first students.
What happened to Ray Brown? You can tell the story about
Ray Brown took a power bomb from, I think, Peter.
Yes,
it was from
Peter.
you, was it? And he had some rare bone disease where his femur,
and then he broke.
his arm shattered into like 1,000 pieces, and it was
a broken arm.
No, but humorous, I think. Yeah.
And it wasn't.
I can't even remember right now. I'm a few whiskey deep here.
I found it funny too.
But I remember when he broke his arm. Frank Parker was the referee, and he was a paramedic at one time too.
Yeah.
And he came in, and he was holding Ray Brown's arm like this while he was coming out. And somebody yelled, "Hey, Frank!" He went, "Hey!" And he dropped his arm, and the arm, you could see the bone like sticking, pushing up through the thing. Frank's like waving to the guy. While
Remember, I came back, I was yelling at him. He's on the stretcher. I'm yelling at him for not taking the power bomb properly. He says, "Pete, could you yell at me later? Maybe my arm was shattered into a million pieces."
He wouldn't even get steel rods. I remember everything put in.
He never wrestled again?
No, I don't think he did.
Cash
I see him
Canoe.
around once in a while. He's a race car driver now.
Really?
Yeah, stock car.
Cash Canoe, great guy. He
You ever see him around?
no, he's in Ontario now.
Who's that fucking guy?
That's
Ray
Ray Brown.
Brown.
That's what we were talking about.
Oh, jeez, I barely recognize him. JQ again.
Jeff-
Corporal Chaos.
Chaos.
Josh Williams.
One of the craziest guys who's ever.
He did 4 years in jail.
There you go.
He's a hardened criminal now.
What do you do?
Fuck, I don't know.
Something wrong.
Something wrong. All right.
Stupid, I would assume.
Bill Scully.
Bill Scully. I've become close friends with him through outside of wrestling.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we never saw eye to eye when we
As
was wrestling
wrestlers.
business together. But I didn't dislike him, but we just never saw eye to eye. But we kind of align politically now, and I have good conversations with him.
Yeah, me too.
I like Bill. I respect him. Me and old Natty.
Yes.
Nasty Nat, man. I like Nasty
She's
Nat.
the mother
a cool
mother
chick.
of two now, an accomplished fitness competitor.
She's still hot.
Mark Rude.
Still, I believe, one of the best workers there is in WWE or anywhere
The next
else.
Ron Howard or Ron Jeremy.
Because someone used to have a camera in front of you all the time.
Yeah, Bobby's he's getting what he deserves right now, right? He's getting the success that he deserves and the money he deserves. Wild Man, I think we've said enough about Wild Man. He's awesome, dude, man. In and out of the
Great
ring.
guy, great worker.
Yeah. Otto. Yeah.
Rest in peace, brother. He was
Yes.
one of the good ones.
I remember the first time I seen Otto, he walked
Look how
in.
thin Custom was. It's hard to believe he's a big fat fucker now.
He looks like King Kong Bundy now.
She used to call him Little Bundy.
But I still do. But Otto, I remember the first time I met Otto, he walked into Scott Glant's house, bear hugging a Texas Mickey with a pump on us. And he goes, "This is how the week's going." I said, "Me and you are going to be hanging out together, brother."
Massive damage, great guy.
Awesome guy.
Massive has cleaned his life up, and he's doing drug-free speeches on Indian reserves out west. He's doing a lot of good.
Yeah.
Buddy Lane, we talked a lot about Buddy earlier.
In great shape there and still is today.
Still
Might
is
be in
today.
better shape.
Yeah, maybe.
Kurrgan, awesome dude. That dickhead. I don't know.
Jesus Christ, I don't even remember I don't remember any of these pictures.
Me neither. Chi-Chi, Eddie Watts. Both. Eddie Watts is a great worker.
I never cared for Eddie Watts as a person. I don't care who knows it.
He's a good worker.
Yeah, no question about it. Good worker. Yeah. Unfortunately, he had a very uneventful career. But
yeah, he had a good run in Puerto Rico for a while as a middle heavyweight guy, and then he did a little bit in Japan. Like, he made his rounds, but he was a little man. He had that little man syndrome, right? That was always his downfall. But I
don't like him.
Yeah.
Chi-Chi, us, the old Cardinal Sinners. I think that was the original hot run of the Cardinal Sinners. Me, you, Bobby with Nasty Nat. Look at the abs on Nat.
That is a good picture. I don't even remember that picture. Nothing that surprising.
Well, let's take a closer look.
Might as well enjoy looking at
I'm
ourselves.
just getting the glare.
None of us had tattoos. You had maybe one tattoo. I had none.
Bobby with the handlebar mustache and the bleach blonde hair. I think that's when we were like at the Cardinal Sinners was at its prime run right there.
Totally, that was it. And Bobby went babyface not long after this, and Natty stayed with him.
Yeah.
Betrayed us. Watts and Duke. I shouldn't really knock Eddie Watts because he was a good worker. We just didn't see eye to eye.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily make it his fault.
It's probably yours.
Probably. Old Wild Merc.
Duke.
I don't know that guy.
Rachel is a cool chick.
I don't know her.
And you know what?
I think she looked. Met her once or twice.
I think she looks better today than she does now. And she was hot as hell then. But she's. I think if you're looking for the fountain of youth, I think she's the one who found it. Johnny Wise guy had a rough go after Real Action Wrestling. I think he did 10 years in jail, didn't he?
Like that.
Ooh.
Yeah, he accomplice to homicide or murder or something.
Don't know him at all.
This guy, Dino Wildman Williams, one of the best dudes you'd ever meet.
I only met him once or twice.
Great worker. Me and him, we did a tables match, I think, and it's probably one of my best matches to this day. It could stand as one of my better matches, and that was again green as goose shit then.
To Jonathan, I'm pissed.
Awesome guy. Scott Savage, good dude. I like Scott Savage. Hard worker.
Yeah,
Didn't mind paying his dues. Humble, respectful.
I like Scott too.
Can't say enough of the good things about Scott Savage. He's a preacher now in Australia.
Really?
I've never seen him do anything offensive that could bother anybody.
Cinder, another good dude.
Can't stand him.
Really?
Fuck you, Cinder. He lied to me, and when somebody lies to me, I really fucking struggle. Fuck you, Cinder, you fucking twat. I'm glad your girlfriend left you devastated and you almost killed yourself. I just wish you'd been successful.
Vance Nevada, I like Vance.
Yeah, I like Vance. I didn't know Vance until I went. Me and Andre.
Amazing. Great
Me and
story.
Andre a few years ago went out to. We went and did an Indian Reserve tour in Manitoba that Vance was booking for Tony Condello. And that's the only time I got to know Vance. He's a great guy. I love traveling with him, just shooting stories back and forth. He's one of those guys that doesn't put himself over. He just tells truthful stories. He's been around, you know. Yeah. He's done everything there is to do in Canada wrestling-wise. He's done it.
He used to cut this promo. He'd say, long before the main event and way before the intermission, I'm the opener.
That.
Sarah Stock,
Stock,
one of my favorite women wrestlers of all time. She's as cool as the boy. She's tough as nails. Yeah. And right now she's one of the top producers for SmackDown.
Yeah.
She trained at the NXT. She's done everything. Big star in Mexico.
Yeah.
Showtime Eric Young.
That picture was taken on the beach in Rhyl, North Wales, by Org Williams. I remember that day. His wife insisted that I take my tights off. She says, "You got nice legs. You got to show them." Eric Young, great guy,
Awesome.
great worker, great guy.
There's a guy I have a lot in common with. Both drink whiskey, both ride Harleys, we like tattoos, I can't say that. We talk still a lot to this day online.
Another great guy, Sin. I just worked him this year in England.
Yeah. Nicest guy I ever seen, man.
Bass, fuck you.
Who's that? Yeah, Bobby Bass, fuck you, Bass.
Player.
JT
Love
player, man. One of my favorite.
And Bomber,
dudes.
do you follow Ben online?
I don't.
Ben Nelson?
Only met him for a couple days, right? He left
right.
afterwards, right?
He might be one of the political geniuses of our time. When he writes a Facebook status, you got to sit down, you got to take 20 minutes. Do you follow him on Facebook? Ben Nelson. He's worth fucking following on Facebook and Twitter. When he writes a status, you got to take the 20 minutes to read it, and then you got to take another 20 minutes to absorb it. And then you have to take another hour to enjoy the arguments with all the leftists trying to attack him. him just taking them down point by point. He's one of the smartest guys I've ever met in my life.
JT Player, the Sammy Davis Jr. promo he cut is one of my favorite promos, the most memorable promos of all time. When he said Sammy Davis Jr. is looking down with his googly eye.
We turned him one night. We had too many heels, so I said, "Player, go out in Moncton." I said, "Go out and turn babyface." How? I said, "Just do it on the microphone." He went out and apologized to the people for being a jerk and. I'll really try hard, and anyway, they fucking bought into it and they loved him.
Yeah. JT.
So then the next week we had too many baby faces. I said, "Player, go out and turn heel again." Grabs the microphone, turns on them. I didn't mean what I said last week. Come back again. We got too many heels. I said, "Player, you got to turn baby face." "Yeah, you're killing me, man." He goes out and grabs the microphone and apologizes for the week before, and they still bought it. So we had him switch 4 fucking weeks in a row, back and forth. And he was so talented on the microphone that they bought it every time.
I remember him doing that.
The big show in Moncton, right?
I remember him saying, Sammy Davis Jr. is looking down on me with his googly eye, and he's saying, "JT Player."
Fucking great worker, Elvis Elliott.
Yeah.
Great worker.
Incredible. He did stuff in the ring that like I was
ahead of his time.
He'd go run up the corner, walk down the top rope, and then he'd jump this way and do a moonsault into the ring. It was one of the
Jason Bates, great guy. Still talk to him all the time.
one of the toughest guys too that I've ever been on the road with.
Stevie Lee, may you rest in peace, my friend.
Yeah, Stevie Lee's a good dude too.
Stevie Lee. Some handsome bastard. I've never been able to write. It's like a child scribbling. Look at Steen. Jesus Christ, worse. Look at me. Fucking hell.
Try not to.
That was the picture that got me booked in Ireland. I remember I said that's what I sent to Org. I took that on my back deck, flash took it, and sent it to Org, and that's when he said, "Yeah, you're more of a Hulk Hogan than a Triple H."
Bandana, brother. Steiner, Wiener, Van McCauley. I remember the night we had him dancing for pizza, and that's how he became Vinny Glide.
Rick with hair.
Mm-hmm. One of the world's most interesting man, maybe Trash Can.
Yeah, Butcher
Vachon, man. I wouldn't recognize Rene there.
No, me either.
Marco Estrada, first promo picture from UCW. He was talent right from his first match. He had one of the best first matches ever. I like him bang with the mask on.
There's Jeff.
Yeah.
I had a match with Marco in Quebec maybe 2 years ago. And Marco, the thing, I don't like how high-spotty Marco is. I think that if he told more of a story and laid back a little, he'd draw more money. But
He can do whatever.
but he's got a lot of respect for veterans. So I called the match and he did whatever I wanted. And my God, was he over. And I worked him in Shippigan not long after that. And he does little things so well. Like, you know how I like to lock up a smaller guys like him and just give a big push off?
Yep.
Marco goes right over the ring. He'll take one bounce and go out between the second and third rope, or first and second rope, right to the floor. And he really sells the little stuff, and it makes the big stuff so much more effective.
I attribute it to good training.
Yeah, we trained him well. But to be honest,
He was talented.
within one day of training, we could have put him in the ring and had a match with anybody.
Yeah. He's that good, man.
Yeah, he's a great.
He's got one of the best bodies for a little guy.
And he's a great guy. When I go to Quebec, I'll generally, not generally, but a few times, I'll go to his house and spend a day. You know, he looks after me and feed me and stuff like that. And he's a good guy.
I enjoyed the drive that we just did.
I wish that I
last
spent
trip.
more time with him.
Yeah, can't say enough good stuff about Mark.
He's always upbeat, always positive.
He can joke around.
He's a fun guy. Yeah. He's not sensitive, or you don't have to worry about hurting his feelings. He's just torment him for being short and bald, and he torments me for being old, and everybody's happy.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Next question I have would be your WWE tryouts. You guys had some tryouts when the roster was at its strongest, the end of the Attitude Era. WCW just collapsed, so there was a lot of available talent. You want to describe your tryouts?
I had a good tryout with Tyson Dukes, Monday Night Raw. Got over well. And then they put me on TV. I did a dark match first one, and they put me on TV because it went so well the next night. Me and Mark Bottalucci did a dark match against the FBI. It was okay. You know what I mean? There's so much talent around at that time.
Yeah.
It was tough to get a spot, right? And then I honestly can say I never really pursued things. Like, I never sent in the videotapes. I never followed up. I never called. I think after that, it was years later, 2007, that I went and did the 2-week camp with OVW. Yeah. And yeah, I enjoyed the experience. I was lucky that they were done in Halifax. So the Halifax fans responded. Cowboy chants, Cardinal Sinner chants. It was good that way, but I never pursued it as much as because I was always busy doing other things, right?
Mm. Peter?
Went, didn't get a job.
Who'd you work?
Don't give a fuck.
You
It
remember?
was me and Bobby Roode versus Tommy Dreamer and the little midget guy, Kidman, who's a dickhead, by the way. And didn't get a job. Don't care. Never liked WWE, to be honest with you. Still don't like it. I would love to have got.
I like the money.
I would love to have got a contract, but it never kept me up at night. Doesn't really bother me. I remember being told by who's the fat guy that couldn't work but was entertaining, Michael Hayes.
Okay.
I remember him telling me just call back every week. I said I won't be calling. You know, I said you guys have my number. If you want me, call me. And I'm not begging for anything. I was already making money, not that kind of money, but I was. I'm not the guy to call and beg for. You know, I'm 6'6" and 300 pounds. You've seen me. If you want me, call me. I'll do any gimmick you want, but I'm not going to beg you for work. I've seen guys drive themselves crazy, obsessed with WWE, and it doesn't happen. You just got to take wrestling for what it is. Whatever that piece of pie you're given, enjoy it, eat it, savor every bite of it, because it could be over tomorrow. Yeah. So whether that piece of pie is this big or this big, just eat it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Which answers my next question. I think the regret not trying harder to get signed. It doesn't seem like it.
Nah, I don't give a fuck.
Some days yes, some days no.
I regret not pursuing Japan heavily.
Okay.
That's my only regret. I think back when big gaijings were the rage, when I was running hot in England and complacent, I should have every week been contacting New Japan. Mm-hmm. And All Japan and Noah was big then. I really should have pursued that because I think I could have made a lot of money in Japan.
I was always lazy in pursuing anything. My phone always rang and said, go here, go there, so I never really pursued anything. Mm-hmm. To this day, I'm not great at sending videos to anybody, sending promos to anybody, sending pictures to anybody. Whenever I've
done it like 3 times in my career. And to be honest, I've never sent a picture to somebody unless I ask for it.
Yeah.
So I have reached out, maybe 3 or 4 times in my career, I've reached out to promotions. And it hasn't worked for me. I don't think I've ever got to promote every booking. I'm going to say 100% of my bookings was them reaching out to me.
I was lucky enough and maybe misfortunate enough that in the first 10 years of my career, somebody always called me. So I never understood.
We had a network.
Yeah, so I never understood how to get.
You have brought me to you got me our last 2 trips to Japan. You hooked those up. You hooked me up for my second trip to Puerto Rico. I hooked you up in England. I put a word in for you in Germany. Brought you to India and Korea. We'll look out for each other.
Yeah.
You know, anytime I get a booking anywhere, I mean, I've been working on trying to get you to Germany. It's just the flights from Canada are fucking expensive. They can bring in 3 Americans for 1 Canadian price.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's you just try to look after your friends and hope that, you know, and not hope that they'll look after you, but
it's a reciprocating.
It generally is
professional relationship.
But when I help somebody to go, like I've brought I remember, like, you and I spent a couple long tours together in England, and I've had Titus on a long tour with me. I've had Rick Doyle on a long tour with me. You were there for that. Yeah. I've had Duke on a long tour with me. Jason Bates. You know, there's. It's not just me helping them. It's nice to have a little army built around you. You know, you want just in case for some guys that are on your side. So it's smart politics, and it's good socially. You know, you want to have that one guy that you can
have fun and confide in.
Yeah, confide in. Like if I'm having trouble in my life in some other capacity outside of wrestling, to have you on the road with me. I mean, fuck, I don't know how many times I've
We've been through a few mental breakdowns together.
I've chewed your ear off and you've chewed my ear off where we just sit, you know, where your job that night is to just listen to your friend.
Yeah.
You know, offer him an ear and, you know, hopefully the next day is better.
An ear and a drink.
I've unfortunately spent a lot of time on the road where I get along with everybody, but I don't have any friends. So, you know, you go to a place for a few weeks and you don't have any friends. You know, they're guys you just met or you know in passing. So, you know, yeah, you go out for drinks with the guys and stuff, but you don't have that one person you can trust and sit down and talk to. And
we've had that in each other for 20 years, right?
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.